Thursday, February 26, 2026. This Committee of Finance, Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is called to order. Once again, I'll read it into the record. This is ordinance number 117-2026 by Councilmember Griffin by departmental request. An emergency ordinance to make appropriations and provide current expenses for the daily operation of all municipal departments of the City of Cleveland for the fiscal year from January 1, 2026 until December 31, 2026. And as we always do, I am passing the gavel over to my colleague, Kevin Bishop, who is the Chair of Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. That's sure. Ms. Saban, can you read the first section into the record?
Page 349, West Side Market, General Operations, Salaries, 2025 unaudited, 0. 2026 budgeted, 0. Page 350, Total Expenditures, 2025 unaudited, 1,118,972. 2026 budgeted, 783,303, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you. Director, do you want to kick us off by you want to kick us off?
Great. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. To the chair, thank you for having us at the table for our budget hearing. We have with us today Rosemary Moudry, who is the executive director of the West Side Market Corporation. And she has a brief presentation, and she's happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you. You want to go ahead, welcome Ms. Rosemary. You want to kick us off with the presentation?
Yes, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate all your time this morning to council and look forward to your wonderful questions that I'm sure you have. So I wanted to just give a couple updates that, for maybe some of the new colleagues on the team, just to make sure everyone has the context of, the transition over the last couple years with the market, and then really delve into kind of talking about the budget and master plan. So just as a reminder, in April of 2024, Cleveland Public Market Corporation, the nonprofit formed to manage West Side Market, assumed day-to-day operations of West Side Market. And just as a reminder, our mission is to preserve the public market tradition and make the local food system more accessible, equitable, and diverse. I wanted to kind of delve in a little bit. CPMC really has two charges from the master plan that was developed by the City of Cleveland and stakeholders, and that master plan was the guiding force that led to the formation of the nonprofit and led to me being here today. And those two charges are, one, maintain day-to-day operations of the West Side Market, and then two, implement the transformation project, the physical capital improvements that are required as part of the master plan to see the market into the next 100 years. So just as a reminder, the master plan goals were, we know that the market has been operating at a loss, is to implement a sustainable operating model through the development of new revenue sources. So, the revenue sources that the city had before were the rents that merchants paid, which cannot sustain currently the needed operations of an 114-year-old building, restoring infrastructure and operating systems, expanding the market's community impact. There's so many ideas that the community have, so many ideas that merchants had on the ways that the market can be leading and ensuring we have a more accessible and equitable food system. And finally, thinking about underutilized spaces, how can they be renovated and restored in order to provide new revenue sources and the experiences that make the market competitive and attract customers so that the merchants can sustain and operate in the future. So just as a quick reminder, I won't delve in too deeply, but the master plan touches really every element of the market. We have the produce arcades on the outside. We have the alleyway between the market and the courtyard. We have the basement. We have the market hall. We have the men's and women's locker rooms. All of those spaces are touched by the master plan. And we have begun construction on the master plan. So I just want to kind of shout out to the partners. CPMC is working with a really great group of partners on the implementation of the master plan, Independence Construction and AKA team, Robert P. Madison and DLR Group as our architects. Those are the folks that are really helping ensure that we have a smooth construction project and that we get the market where it needs to go. So market progress. So we took over day-to-day operations in April of 2024 and immediately began fundraising for the implementation of the master plan. As a reminder, that transformation project is going to bring on spaces and renovate spaces that allow us to have more revenue streams. And so our priority has been ensuring that we, as quickly and as efficiently as possible, raise dollars and leverage the city's investment. So between June and December of 24, we secured $9 million in philanthropy, largely which was due to people asking, is the city committed to this project? And I was able to say, yes, the city has committed to this project very deeply. In April of 25, we closed on $52 million, which was stage 1 of the construction project, which really focuses in on some of the most critical concerns of the market. So the produce arcades and the basement and infrastructure and generators and things like that. So we closed on that financing of $52 million in April, and then we kicked off and broke ground in May of 2025. In September, we started construction on the smokestack to restore the smokestack, which is a historical element of the market. Began work on the elevator pit that will help connect the produce arcades to the basement more easily, and continued work on the East Arcade, which is the home of the produce arcade. Between April of 25 last year and December, we raised an additional $7 million towards the transformation project, which includes several million in philanthropy, plus additional tax credits. And then in January, we opened the KeyBank Produce Arcade, which for the first time produce vendors have true heating and air conditioning. They, for the first time, have refrigerated display cases, which is, it's huge because the market hall has always had them and the produce arcade never has. And so, I think for produce merchants who have been there for so many years, this has been a tremendous change for them, but it's also been a tremendous change for customers. There are many customers who simply did not shop or skipped the produce arcade because they found it intimidating, it wasn't handicap accessible with the height of the product wasn't displayed in a way that made them feel confident that it was quality, and so we're seeing so many people who are now shopping with those merchants, and I think they took the brunt of the public. They received the most public critique generally over the years, and so I think having them lead the way has really it's been tremendous, and they've gotten what they deserved for the hard work that they put in every day. So that was the groundbreaking in May. Thank you to so many folks who supported that, Council President and others who were all there. And then this is the opening in January of 2026. As you can see, the arcade still feels like the historical elements, but it's brighter, it's lighter, it's providing merchants with more linear square feet of display space in the same amount of stall, which can allow them to generate more revenue. It's addressed a lot of customer concerns, and it's comfortable for merchants. One of the other pieces is, us thinking about how do we ensure that the market is a place that exists for another 100 years. Without customers, that's not possible. So another area that we've focused our work on is driving customers to the market. The opening weekend of the Produce Arcade was 35% more foot traffic at the market than the previous January weekend. And despite the cold weather and despite actually even closing the market on that Sunday of the terrible storms, January of 26 was up almost 20% over January of 2025. I want to kind of delve into what's happening next with construction because I think this really plays into the budget and some of the questions council may have regarding, projections that I had put together. And so what's happening now is the East Arcade is complete. They're beginning some of the utility trenching work in the North Arcade. And by this spring, everybody will have moved out of their storage in the basement into temporary swing space in the North Arcade. So just to reorient folks, oops, I went a little too fast. The north arcade there and where the courtyard will be, that all becomes temporary swing space. So we build out a temporary basement, everybody moves in there, and then we have to gut the basement. We put in new infrastructure, new electrical to merchant stands, all of those kinds of things happen over the next year. The basement will take 12 to 16 months to complete. It's slated to finish sort of end of summer 2027. And so when that happens, the basement will be complete. Merchants will move into their coolers, and that will also see the opening of the commercial kitchen that's going into the basement, which is going to provide another revenue stream. I just was having meetings with some of our merchants and butchers yesterday. They're very excited to rent space in the commercial kitchen. There's a lot of value-add products that they cannot produce right now in their stands. And then, when we are able to start leasing some of the spaces in the market hall, which we have put leasing on pause in the market hall right now because we know we're going to be doing HVAC, and we want to make sure that as we need to accommodate any construction challenges that we are able to do that. But when we were getting applicants before, one of the questions folks would ask, and even ask the city, this was part of the transition that Felicia and others would share with me, is that people would be interested in a stand, and then they would ask, well, where's the kitchen for me, to help me produce this? And we'd have to say, there is no kitchen at the market. You have to rent commercial space somewhere else. Then you have to have a vehicle that can transport it at temperature here. And so the commercial kitchen is really both a revenue generator, but also a critical piece to being able to make sure we can diversify our merchant base and be more inclusive and lower the barrier to entry to the market, so we can ensure we have the tenant mix that we want. So as I mentioned, by the summer, basement demolition will be in full swing. We'll begin working on the market hall glycol system, updating electrical, commercial kitchen, HVAC installation in the market hall also begins, and utility yard construction, which is where the generators and some of the other large HVAC equipment will go. Other things scheduled are beginning to work on the area behind Kate's Fish, which will have first floor restrooms, making the market ADA accessible. Right now, as you know, most of the restrooms are in the basement. There's only one restroom on the first floor, and there's no elevator to those restrooms. And that accessible restroom is in the cafe. So that's a major priority of the market, and ensuring that we're a welcoming space for all Clevelanders. Jumping into the transformation project, it's about $70 million. We have about $12 million left to raise. As you can see, we have great commitment from some community partners. We're now on the next round with other foundations and other corporations and community partners. And 12 million is a lot, but we also feel really good about some of the prospects and partners that we have. And I just want to emphasize the dollars that the city of Cleveland committed have allowed us to leverage this to be at $58 million. So your commitment has allowed us to access so many dollars that would not be possible, and having our nonprofit status has allowed us to attract philanthropy, community partners, and also create a complicated but very important structure that allows us to take advantage of federal historic tax credits, new market tax credits, as well as the very competitive state historic tax credits. Just to delve into operations a little bit, some of the things that we have focused on are how are we living our mission even while we're working on completing the master plan. So small business programming, what are ways that we drive traffic to the market, highlight our merchants that are there, so merchant demonstrations, sampling days. We also really want, while we haven't been doing long-term leasing, we really wanted to show Clevelanders that there's a commitment to finding diverse and new businesses. And so we had monthly pop-ups throughout the year that focused on recruiting Cleveland-based and minority-based businesses. We also had a partnership with Central Kitchen last year. So folks who are tenants and rent space in their commercial kitchen had the ability to, under the brand of Central Kitchen, test a brick and mortar concept for the first time, and those were minority and women-owned businesses, again, as a way to really ensure that we're putting our living our mission now and really emphasizing to the community that this is an important thing for us. And then the other thing that I think is really important is the relationship with the community. So we have, over the last year, really committed since groundbreaking to an information booth at the market, which is staffed either by our staff or volunteers, which means that we're answering questions about the project, about the market, about parking. We are there, and if somebody's upset or anything, we are always there to communicate and, and have a relationship with the shoppers in the community, which I think is really critical because we're here for the merchants and for the community, so it's important that we're there to listen to them. Community impact, I want to emphasize the market is a critical place for healthy food. The Produce Perks program, which is a special version that's not quite the same as the version at Farmers Market, but it has coupon distribution for TANF-eligible families. We partner with FAIR to do that. Last year, more than 40,000, in 2024, more than $40,000 worth of coupons were redeemed, and we're still waiting on the data from the final data from 2025. I'm sorry, just in the May 2025, there are 287 households receiving vouchers and $40,000 worth of produce through that program. We also have a program through the Cleveland Clinic. It's called Produce RX, which is like a food as medicine program. So folks with diabetes get prescribed a produce program, and they get delivered healthy food to their homes from the West Side Market. Those are programs that we anticipate being able to expand and use the Teaching Kitchen and other things to really have the market be a leader in access and healthy eating across Cleveland. We have other partnerships like the Cleveland Public Library. Through that partnership, the library has given away more than 250,000 free books, helping build libraries for Clevelanders at home. We've also really worked on school tours and being able to engage more fully, and we look forward to kind of continuing to build that out. I also just wanted to highlight something that's happening this year, and it's launching tomorrow. We have a program called Fresh Fundamentals, funded by a grant from Enbridge. That's a weekly collaboration with local chefs, and it's produce forward, so healthy eating featuring produce that's really simple to prepare, healthy to eat. Folks get recipe cards. But what I'm really excited about is through the program, it provides 100 free meal kits to go along with that recipe to SNAP and EBT and TANF-eligible families every week as a part of it. So they can sign up to receive a meal kit. So when they come on site, they can see the demo, and then they get to take home the ingredients that were in that demo to help them make it at home themselves for free. Just wanted to kind of give another snapshot. Overall, the market is back over 900,000 visitors for the first time in many, many years. Our goal is to continue to reach out to the community and engage. So, we have been using a variety of marketing tools to reach the community, to let them know what's happening, and to make sure that they're ready to engage and come back to the market for the first time if they haven't been in a while. Delving into the budget, the way the budget was put together, we started in 2024, midway through the year, so I worked very closely with the city to develop that budget, which was already in place when we were taking over management. And then 2025, I put together, you can see the budget from 2025 and then 2026. I want to emphasize these were the kind of expected budget ratios in the master plan, and that we understand that one of the fastest ways to be able to eliminate the subsidy from the city is to complete the master plan, diversify our revenue streams, and ensure that we're no longer under construction so that we can fully lease the building, so that we can host events and drive revenue in other ways. I want to kind of run through a few things that folks may be wondering about the budget. So I think folks are interested in understanding like rent and things like that. So as you'll see an increase in rent in the projections, that comes out of one, an annual raise, but also new sources. There's stands that are vacant right now in both in the market hall. And so those are stands that can be rented in the future but are not currently rented. And so you'll see an uptick in the vendor rent is really just the market hall, basement rent, and the East Arcade. The other thing with the basement is we have worked really hard to provide as much storage as possible during in the swing space, but there is more storage in our current basement, which gave a larger potential rent in the basement than there will be in the next year and a half or so. And then we'll move back into the basement and be able to kind of follow through with the rent structure that is going to be in place in the long term. On the program, event, and merch line, I want to be really clear. So that line is lumped together because right now we have a small number of programs that generate some revenue, and we sell merchandise. And those two things, we believe are going to lead to about $45,000 in revenue this year. But the reason that you see such a large jump over the next few years is because the men's locker room is going to become an event space, which will be able to be rented out and host all kinds of programming in the future. And so that's why, there's no expectation that merchandise or something like that is going to generate hundreds of thousands of revenue. That space is a key revenue generator for the market, and our peer markets across other cities, Milwaukee, others, their event spaces generate enormous amounts of revenue for us. And so these pieces of the plan have been well thought out to ensure that there's new revenue generating sources. We launched new parking when CPMC took over management, but those plans had already been developed by the city to look at removing the gates and things like that because the gates were constantly breaking. They caused a lot of concerns for traffic and other challenges to the city. And every time the gates were down, the city lost about $1,400 a day. In addition to the congestion issue, having to hire traffic police. So the gates are gone. We have not had a congestion issue. And while we would love to see more revenue from the market, from parking, I would like to emphasize that this is net revenue. So I think some folks may have referenced some parking studies or things like that showed revenue higher. And yes, we believe that parking revenue needs to grow over time, but those were not net. That over $1 million, that was not the net revenue that was projected. The net revenue projected was closer to 800,000, which obviously we're still below and we need to work on. We are trying to balance, a wide variety of users of the market or of the lot, from market customers to employees. In the evening, we have employees of the bars and restaurants who have 8-hour shifts. And so we're trying to think about what is the way to drive revenue, but also have people use the lot and also make sure that the market remains a welcoming place for customers of all means. Again, the commercial kitchen, you'll see that right now there's no revenue, but over the next few years, revenue starts to tick up. We believe, based on the construction schedule, that we'll be able to start generating some revenue by the end of 2027 as the commercial kitchen opens. And then over the next few years, as we build it out and it can reach its full potential and get to max capacity, it will be able to generate that level of revenue. And so all of these elements were developed in conjunction with the master plan, with looking at other kitchens and things like that, folks like Findlay Market and others. And then, we tried to, based on our lived experiences, make adjustments to the projections so that, we can be realistic about what we can achieve. And so I want to emphasize, we want to do better than all of the predictions. Like everything here, our goal is always to do better than the budget, not worse than the budget. And so, if we can get off city subsidy sooner, that is my goal. I would love nothing more than to come to you and say, next year we can break even, or in 3 years we can break even, not 2030. So just know that is always my goal. And, in looking at grant sponsorships, again, I want to emphasize, we are raising a tremendous amount of money, but we are not raising it currently for the day-to-day operations. We are raising it to complete the transformation project. And then a lot of those donors and things like that will roll into an annual fund and be people that, we tap all the time. We've seen tremendous interest in the public in giving to the market, and we anticipate that will continue to be so. Just a reminder, the 60-plus small businesses, 900,000 folks visiting. Produce Perks redemption is the highest in the state of Ohio. And, invite your questions, but also if you want to see firsthand what's going on, see construction. Construction tours are fun for me, and I'd love to have any and all of you. I do have slides after this in case anyone has a particular question on an element of the project with rendering, but I'll leave it here for your questions and look forward to maybe hosting you at the market sometime soon.
All right, thank you for that presentation. I got a few questions. You say the foot traffic was up in 2025 by 22%? And so the parking revenue, should that kind of be an indicator of, parking revenue should be up about 22% also, or is that that's not the way we should look at it?
No, because parking is free for the first 90 minutes at the
Okay.
market, and so the majority of customers are going and leaving the market within 90 minutes.
90 minutes, okay.
So
now-
that just long-term is something for us to consider, but right now we believe it's more important to generate customer traffic to the market than change that 90 minutes free, which folks fought for pretty hard.
Okay, so on page 350, total revenue and expenditures are exactly the same. Can you explain, Director, can you explain why the total revenue and the total expenditures are exactly the same?
To the chair, so they're under the new agreement, and it's also an enterprise fund, so whatever expenditures they have, there is a subsidy from the general fund to, if they can't collect the revenue, we have to support their operation.
So the expenditures, so we're paying them that figure, so the expenditures will be exactly the same figures? I'm trying to understand why that's the case.
Yeah, to the chair, what they do is they give us an estimated expenses, and then they have a shortfall on their presentation. So they'll show like their operating expenses, they'll show what revenues they're generating, and then there's a negative number, so they're running in the red, and then that's the number they give the city to supplement their operations. So that's provided by the market when they do their estimation of the budget now.
Okay. Also, it says the vendor rent. I know you touched on the vendor rent, but the figures right here shows the vendor rent is going to be estimated to be going down in 2026 from 2025.
Yes, that is correct. So in moving folks from the Produce Arcade, there were several leases we did not renew. The new Produce Arcade is a bit smaller, so then we also moved folks inside, and we had one or two folks who didn't renew their leases in the Market Hall as well. And again, the Produce Arcade is full now, and the Market Hall is not full, but we are anticipating doing construction in the Market Hall, like HVAC and stuff, and so those stands we are not re-renting out right now yet.
So have you probed the vendors that didn't renew their leases? Have you probed to see why they didn't renew their lease?
Yeah, so there was only two folks. One, she had a small stand and was just not generating the revenue she needed to and wanted to get a second job. And the other was of retirement age and was ready to retire and works at another stand now.
Okay. Also, you mentioned that you are not offering long-term leases to our vendors. What's the reason behind not offering a long-term lease to a vendor?
To the councilman, I don't think I mentioned that, but currently we offer one-year leases. That is what the city did, and in the future, as we come out of construction, we're working on like a rubric that would evaluate tenants so that if they wanted a longer-term lease, they could have one.
So if I was a vendor and I wanted a 5-year lease.
In the future, that would be possible.
Okay, but right now it's not.
Correct.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions. I'm going to go to Councilman Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, and glad to see a representative West Side Market here. You know, the West Side Market is historically a very important facility for us here at Council. And I've been here long enough to realize the importance of it and the fact that over the years we have put a lot of money in the West Side Market. And I'm not just talking recently, I'm talking back years. In fact, I think it was during the White administration, we put about 6 million plus windows, doors. So my calculator in my head is thinking about all the money we have poured into the West Side Market over the years. So, and part of the challenge here for us is that when we looked at the subsidy again that was being proposed this year, raised concerns here within the body. Because see, we have the West Side Market, but then on the east side, we have the East Side Market that is ready to implode because it was operated by Neon, and we all know what's happening with Neon. Then again, on the east side, we have just food deserts, one after another, from one neighborhood to another. So it raised concerns with many of us, especially East Side members, as it pertains to how much money we have to continue to put in the market. And it's something that, you know, that many of us here have supported. And as I've indicated, I've been going to the West Side Market since as I was a child with my grandfather, and I have very fond memories. And when I go over there, I think of people I deal with. I go over there every week. Jim's Meats, Minnie, Frank Elsa, Frank's Bratwurst, Lance's Meat, A&W Whitaker's. And I miss Tony Pinzone. I miss Ehrenfeld's, Walter Ehrenfeld. I could go down a list of people that I've dealt with there over the years. And what I like about the West Side Market, what I love about the West Side Market, it's Cleveland. You go there, you see every nationality, every race, every religion, people with six-figure incomes and people on public assistance, you know, rubbing elbows in this historic building. So my concern was, as other council members were, was the amount of the subsidy which had increased, and the fact of concerns about the parking. And so let me say this, what about the folks who don't have, Mr. Chairman, who don't have iPhones, who have flip phones? What do they do when they go to the market? Because that's one of the concerns that I hear.
To the councilman through the chair, there's a kiosk that does not require a phone at all. You can
Okay.
just pay at the kiosk with your credit card.
Okay, so what if they don't have a credit card?
That is true. We don't offer cash, but I will say the previous machine that collected cash collected less than $100 in cash per week, and you have 90 minutes free. So you can do your shopping in 90 minutes.
But you don't
at the
get a
market.
ticket coming in. You drive right in.
Correct.
So what, again, so that person who doesn't have a
They don't
credit
need to do
card,
anything at all.
They don't need to do
They can
anything.
come into the lot for 90 minutes. They don't have to use
don't
their
have to worry
credit
about
card. They
getting a
don't have to
ticket.
use a phone. There's no ticket, nothing at all. They drive in, park, enjoy themselves, shop, and leave.
because you know there's a lot of apprehension about that. They somehow think they're going to get nicked.
Understood.
Okay, so then maybe a better job of educating. Because in our neighborhoods, in the neighborhood that I tell this all the time, when I shop in my own neighborhood, I look at the people that use cash. The older folks, the older ethnics, the older black folks, they're using cash. I have restaurants in my neighborhood and businesses that will only take cash. They won't take credit cards. And I understand that. I know, and you know, it's one for Uncle Sam and it's two for me. I understand how that works, okay? But that's how they've been operating for years. And we have to be mindful at these, you know, you get it. We get it on the east side, okay?
Yeah.
But I want to make sure that nobody is denied. You know how it works. Okay. I know. So I want to make sure that there's no apprehension about going to the market.
Yeah.
And then to the administration, are there any, we don't have I haven't looked at the capital plan. Is there any capital money being allocated to the market this year? Being proposed?
Through the chair to the councilman, I'm not 100% sure. I know we've got capital coming on Monday. I think
No.
our guest wants to answer.
No, there's no requested capital.
Okay.
We have requested the capital for the transformation project and are now leveraging those dollars to raise the additional dollars. And just to the councilman through the chair on the parking, that's one of the biggest reasons why we established the information booth. And then there's also parking attendants there who can answer questions or help folks. But at that info booth, everyone there is trained to help with parking. And what we found is, people do have some apprehension or they do have some questions, but when they get to the booth and folks walk them through it, it makes a big difference. And, I would say over the last 6 months, there's, many folks, I think, for an older generation of Clevelanders who have been coming to the market, it is a beloved space and any change can be daunting and you're not sure how to take it. And I think our volunteers and our staff who have been at the info booth have done a really tremendous job. And, we've seen folks over the course of the 6 months visiting the booth who are, have really been very apprehensive, and especially since the produce arcade has reopened, have said, we really understand what you're doing. This is a tremendous improvement. I'm on board with the transformation plan.
So based on your projections, you believe 2030 you will be solvent.
Yes.
So we'll be required to subsidize the market through 29?
Correct.
Okay. No way to speed that up then, huh?
We are working as quickly as we can. I mean, there's only so fast that construction can go.
Okay. Well, again, I've been a supporter of West Side Market from the day I came in here. I shopped there. In fact, I haven't been there all week. I missed the place, okay?
Should have sent your order in,
yeah,
and
I
I
should
could
have
have
sent my
I could have
order
brought
in,
some
right,
produce
right.
over with me from
Right.
yesterday.
It's a very special place for me. It's been, you'd be surprised number from the folks from the east side who go there, because we used to have the east side market downtown, and that's where Gateway is now. So that disappeared, because my grandfather would hit the east side market, then we'd go to the west side market, because he dealt with certain vendors and folks, and again, reminds me, I think, have great fond memories. But I just want to make sure that the folks, that all of you connected with the West Side Market know that we sacrifice, the body sacrificed greatly. We put 20 million in there, and then we're still dealing with these issues on the east side. Food deserts. We don't have sufficient grocery stores. We don't have establishments that sell fresh produce. A great concern, all of us. And I'm hoping the administration understands this as we go forward, because we're going to have to come up with some unique and crafty approaches to dealing with the problems we're having on the east side. So, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate that. I appreciate the representative of the market being here, and I look forward to hitting Frank's Bratwurst, saying hello to Elsa maybe next week. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I look forward to seeing you at the
Okay.
Bratwurst stand
Thank
too.
you.
All right, Councilman Plensick, what Bratwurst stand is that?
Frank's.
Frank's, okay.
You got to
All
go
right.
over there. You want to get some good stuff, baby.
I'll be sure to go to Frank's
That's
next time
right.
I'm there. All right, Councilwoman Hudson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for joining us here today. I let my colleagues know last week that, many years ago, my husband and I owned a business at the West Side Market. So it holds a special place in my heart. And I'm very, very excited to see these upcoming changes. This is precisely why, way back in the early 2000s when we were there, that we, there were a lot of vendors who were hoping for nonprofit management of the market for precisely the things that you are doing now to activate what was formerly the men's locker room, which has a spectacular view, by the way. So I can see how it could potentially generate the type of money that you're talking about as an event space. And commercial kitchen, that is something that I'm really excited to see. When we were there, people had to rent space, off-site, as you mentioned, which is, an added expense to, for people like us who are creating their product from scratch. And I think giving vendors the ability to do that on site is a tremendous advantage, and it will also help you know, like, help the market, you know, create the image that it's not just middlemen who are putting out products, that these are people who are actually making and creating something and selling it, you know, something to be proud of. And I believe it's what the market was historically created to do. And so we're bringing it back to where it was historically. I do have a few questions. Regarding parking, when I was there, parking was free, but it was not free for the tenants. We paid parking. Do tenants still subsidize the parking?
So tenants, there's still the tenant lot they fully manage, and they charge each other whatever they want to park there. And then some tenants who, I don't know if don't have a spot there, there's a monthly pass available to them at a discounted rate.
Okay, thank you. And can you tell me what is the average rent of a stand? I know that it, you know, or maybe a per square foot rate, because I know it varies on the size of your stand.
I don't have that number off the top of my head, and it varies pretty wildly.
For a location, or is there like a formula that you use to determine what rent is?
So I think that's something that we need to work on in the future. We, you know, kind of inherited the rents and tried in our first year. We've only done one lease since we started, and so we didn't want to create an entire new structure at that point. But my understanding is that every year the city had a calculation to develop rent that had to do with what the price should be that year, plus there was a vacancy factor and some other things, and that generated, you know, whatever the rent per square foot or rent per stand would be. But then for existing tenants, if that new rent exceeded, you know, 3% higher than their current rent, they only went up 3%. And so as you'd have new tenants coming in at that new rate, and then folks who had been there a long time, there's quite a difference in different rates at the market right now.
Okay. Could you provide us with perhaps a list of the current rents that are paid at the market, inside and outside tenants?
Yeah, I can figure out how to get you some numbers.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. I know that when I was there, rent was a significant factor. It was actually a very big expense. I'm thinking to what I paid back when we left. It was 2008, and for our very small booth, we paid about $1,000 a month, which was, you know, quite a lot for back then. So I'm curious to see what that is now. I'm also curious about the bad debt vacancy line. I see that you have 15,000 for 2025, like for 2025, 2026, and 2027. However, that increases to $55,000 for future projections. Can you explain why that amount is, the bad debt vacancy is projected to increase?
So I don't know that it's necessarily to the councilwoman going to increase, but I think in terms of budgeting, right now there's only the one. It's basically the market hall and produce merchant rents, and so that 15K basically accommodates, does somebody leave mid-year, does somebody not renew a lease, and so, you know, it's just basically a buffer for those rents. We increase it as there's more than one revenue stream, because I think the revenue predictions, you know, get more complicated, and so that vacancy or vacancy factor essentially assumes, like, this is what we're projecting in a given year of income, but if we host a few less events or something like that, then that vacancy factor is built in as sort of a buffer in your budget, essentially.
Thank you. And regarding insurance, I see that for some reason in 2025, the amount is $125,000, whereas for most of the other years, it's in the 50s. Can you explain why that number is significantly higher?
Yeah, so to the councilwoman, we had budgeted a higher amount because, so historically, the city self-insures its building, and so there was never any building insurance on West Side Market. But for the tax credit closing process and things like that, we didn't know what was going to be required from an insurance. So we have liability insurance and things like that, but from a physical building insurance, the building had never been insured, and we didn't know how that was going to play out, and so we budgeted a larger amount, really hoping that 120-some thousand would cover it, because we really had never been to the market to try to get insurance. It's actually quite a bit more expensive, but it's wrapped into our builder's risk. And so that's why in 2026, you see a much lower number, because the insurance is just, focused on general liability and things like that. And building insurance is wrapped up in builder's risk. At the completion of the master plan, after 3 or 4 years of having that building risk and builder's risk and building insurance together, one, it will be much easier to get on the market, but two, we have drawings, blueprints, all the systems are upgraded, all of those things, and so insurance will be, we'll be able to get insurance at a competitive price then as well.
Thank you. And then regarding utilities, I see that you do have it increasing year after year. I know each stand owner is responsible for their own electricity within their own stand. I also know that as of now, they're at least inside, and I'm grateful to hear that there's HVAC at least in the East Produce Arcade, but there has not been HVAC in the larger market. Have you taken that into account, that the utilities will increase as as you actually do have working HVAC in the building?
Yeah, to the councilwoman, to the best of our ability, that's why you will see some pretty significant jumps over the next few years in the projections, and to be honest, those are our best predictions, and we're trying to work with our architect and engineering team to better understand those, but it is a little bit hard to predict in a building that's never had things.
Right.
What going from zero to having it will look like. So that is why we've built to the best of our ability. You'll see that in 2030, when I'm projecting no subsidy, it's nearly double what I'm projecting for this year.
Okay, thank you. And then I just want to end with, I really appreciate that you're starting the renovations with the outside produce arcade. It makes a lot of sense. I don't know if people are aware. Of course, the West Side Market historically has been, immigrant-based, largely overall. But more recently, the produce arcades are where our immigrants have their businesses. And so I do think it is important that is where we start the renovations and make sure that we support those business owners. So thank you for that, and thank you for joining us today.
Appreciate it. Thank you for having me, Councilwoman.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman Hudson. We really appreciate your historical perspective of the West Side Market. I'm going to go to Councilman Harsh.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Ms. Modry, for coming in today. Appreciate it. I do have some questions here, and I think some of them have been covered a little bit, but I want to make sure that I understand where we're at. So, through the chair, when you talk about the $52 million that was secured by April of 25 in order to start renovations last year, that was page 7 of your slide. On page 13, you break down some of the sources of funding. Is that where the $52 million is? It's the $23 million from the city, 1.7 from Cuyahoga, that list?
Yeah. Yes. To the councilman through the chair. Yes.
Okay. So roughly half. So $23 million is the city of Cleveland. That is the largest
Correct.
chunk of it. Mm-hmm. State of Ohio and Cuyahoga then coming in at 4.1, and then some Brownfield and some Port Authority. So we're basically halfway there through governmental funders. And then tax credits, which are also a government function. And then the community investment, we've got Gunn, Connor Foundation, Cleveland Foundation, Key Bank, and a potpourri, additional philanthropic, which, I don't know, gets to maybe 9 or 10. Through the chair, I think a lot of us were under the impression that we would be raising a lot more outside philanthropic money to support the West Side Market. And it feels like a lot of this is just the same government channels that we had access to before we transitioned to a new oversight model. So, through the chair, do you consider this community investment to be an indication of success in the new model, or do you think we're still struggling to raise the outside funds that are potentially available?
To the councilman through the chair, I want to be very clear, tax credits are not something that was accessible to the market if it had been under city. So I want to be very clear that that was always a very critical piece of, why the city looked at this transition was to access all of those dollars. So even though it is a government fund, it was not accessible to the city.
Very good point. You're correct.
So, I think our goal, when you're going to philanthropy, is to really show that you've, they always want to know, what did the state help? Did the county help? Did the city help? They want to know all of those sources are in. So I think in our first year, we really wanted to focus on how do we make sure we get all of the dollars, and then when we go to foundations and things like that, and GUND was obviously a very early pledge, but I think they look to see, they want to know what other sources have you exhausted. Did you exhaust tax credits? Did you get as much from the city? So I feel like we're at a good point. Do we have more to raise? And I think, that remaining 12 million, there may be a little bit more from government sources, but that remaining 12 million will largely be philanthropic. And so, I think the other thing is, we started in April of 2024. My director of development didn't even start until April of 2024. And so to be able to get to 9 million basically by the end of 2024, with the market never having a history of giving, it's not like a university where, you start and you have a huge alumni base, or the art museum or things like that. We're building our philanthropic portfolio from scratch, and that's going to take time. A lot of times when you're working with especially individual donors, you might spend years cultivating them, and we're trying to make an ask on the first time. And so I feel really good about where we are. Do we have a lot of work to go? Is it going to be, challenging work? Yes, but I feel confident that we can get there. And I do think, being able to say that, council is supportive, the mayor is supportive, this is something that the city has doubled down and cares about. I think people do look for, is my giving in alignment with the community, and the city represents that. So, I really, I can't emphasize enough that your commitment we would not be where we were without the city showing that very large commitment.
Yeah, and absolutely, you're right. The 17.5 million in tax credits was actually at the table one of the reasons why we decided to do this, and I apologize for that oversight. That's very, very accurate. So going back to 2014, the city of Cleveland has invested over $38 million into the West Side Market in the past 12 years, through bond funds, through ARPA allocations, through general funds support. It's been over $38 million. And I understand that 2014 was after my colleague left the West Side Market, and I had also visited the basement. I had seen the things that people were concerned about, and understand the need for great investment in infrastructure. With that 38 million done, though, I think we did the tower, I think was a big portion of that, the bell tower, the clock tower. With that 38 million, with the 52, and part of that is overlap with the 52 that we're talking about here, but with that money, when the basement is done, when both arcades are finished, at the end of this, is it your opinion through the chair that the West Side Market will be in a place where it can actually sort of settle down and get back into just general operating mode, or do you think there are even more structural investments that are going to be required in 5 years? We're going to have to look at tuck pointing the whole place or something like that, through the chair.
To the councilman through the chair, I guess I would say in a 114-year-old building, I anticipate that capital needs will never end, but I believe that we'll be able to, when this project is done, focus on day-to-day operations, and then we'll also be able to pivot to thinking about other creative things like building an endowment for through fundraising for capital repairs. Once we no longer need subsidy, being able to use that net operating income for creating a capital reserve, and I think developing a 15-year, 20-year look ahead as to like what's coming up, so that instead of things being an emergency and a surprise, if we know something is 10 or 15 years out, we have that on our radar and we're planning for it and developing capital reserves to address it. So, that's what I believe is the path.
Okay, so through the chair, it looks like you're allocating for maintenance and repair about 65,000, projected to go up to 75 over the next couple of years per year. Do you think that's an adequate number to reflect the needs of a 114-year-old building?
To the councilman through the chair, I would love to grow that amount, but I think we are able to do what we need to do on a daily basis with the renovations coming at that level. But again, I think we can move in a direction where we can allocate more once we're sustainable.
Okay. So where I'm going with all of this is that I am worried about the new projected revenue. I'm worried about it because some of it's just completely unrealized as of today. Like there's zeros in these columns for the commercial kitchen, the food hall rent, and the programming event is currently at $12,500. If those fall through, if those don't generate the revenue expected, and by a healthy margin, we're looking at a perpetual $750,000+ subsidy from the city with no end in sight. And I'm just wondering if maintenance is a good faith guess, but sort of relying on the $52 million investment. If revenues don't come in, if we get it all cleaned up and it's looking nice, but it doesn't lead to, you've got quite a bit. You're going from 1.8 million to 3.7, so you're adding almost 2 million annually in revenue. We could be looking at a really bad situation where the transformation to the independent oversight has really only netted us, 25, 35 million in philanthropic and tax credit support for maintaining the building. And that would seem like not the goals we were trying to accomplish. So I'm just wondering what's the backup plan, I guess, through the chair, the backup plan if these revenues don't come through?
To the councilman through the chair, I think if certain levers, so I think one thing that we know is, right, the more diverse your revenue stream is, the more resilient you are. So if any one of these is underperforming, then instead of having one lever, which is merchant rent, like just merchant rent from Market Hall, there are other levers that you can pull. So if program revenue isn't making it, then we do have to push other things more. We have to be more aggressive with parking. We have to look at other things, and I think there's things that, I don't know how to yet account for with parking, like the opening of Irish Town Bend. How can I capitalize on that? Those kinds of things. And so, I think, the master plan lays out that us completing this project and generating that is the future of the market. Without that as is, there wasn't a great path to sustainability. But I think, we will have to look at more things like parking. But I also think if things are really underperforming, things like employee costs or other things like that will also be less, because you're not going to need, if you're not doing as many events, if you're not doing things like that, then the staffing required to maintain things like that is less. If the commercial kitchen isn't as busy and is underperforming, you don't need a whole staff person to be managing it. So I think, there's other levers, and, we'll just, I came from community development where budgets are tight every single year. I understand literally buying down to the piece of paper, and we will have to just keep working hard, continue to have good dialogue, be transparent with council, and and look for other opportunities and be creative. And I think to me that's the greatest strength of the nonprofit is that we can be nimble, we can be adaptable, and if something isn't working, then we're going to have to look for something else. We're going to reach out to partners and work hard to do and make the changes we need to.
Okay. I have one last set of questions about the operation. At the end of the day, I supported the transition because I recognized there was deferred maintenance. There was a need to put some serious work into that basement, and that we had to figure out a better capital plan for the market itself. And the ability to leverage external funds was really what sold me. The two things that worried me, that still worry me about the market, is the loss of an authentic experience. As it was brought up, there's a lot of new immigrants over there. There's a lot of old school, old world style. I went down to the market in Columbus and it just felt like a shiny, fancy little food court. It didn't feel like it was at all an authentic experience. And the market, for all of its lumps, was always a very real place. You knew you were at a place that was very much just a result of the community itself. And so when I hear things like the Key Bank Hall, or the Key Bank, whatever it's called, part of me cringes, but I know I also exist in a minority when it comes to concerns like that. But the other thing that's always worried me is I've seen a lot of nonprofit, especially nonprofits partnered with governments, have a salary creep in a way that kind of does a disjustice to the term nonprofit. And in 2023, the market ran on a total of $521,000 that employed 7 people. You're projected to have doubled that by next year in 2027. What is the number of current full-time employees at the market?
9.
9. So we've gone up 2. I will be keeping an eye on that. I want people to be paid well for their work. I understand that we have to pay people well to get good work. But I do worry about some, and I don't know exactly what your folks are making. I'm not going to ask you right now, but I have seen some partner organizations around the city have some eye-popping salaries for people that I think the city has to really question why we subsidize them. So I will be keeping an eye on that, and maybe we can have that conversation later. But I do worry about when we don't have complete control over the operations, that sometimes people will reward themselves before they put in the work. And I'm not saying that that's happening. I'm just letting you know that I'm going to keep an eye on it.
To the councilman, through the chair, I do want to say that part of just so you know, part of the increase over time is the difference between this year and next year is because I anticipate adding another person as the commercial kitchen comes on board and things like that. So it's not an expectation that the 9 people there are going to suddenly make $100,000 more next year. So I just want to be very clear on that. And, I think my team is here because they are passionate, not because they think that they're going to get rich. And, if we have a good board of directors, then that's something they should also be really cognizant of as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harsh. You bring up some great points, and we really appreciate your perspective. Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Chair. First, to the chair, when you go to the market and you get a Frank's bratwurst, let me tell you, you got to get a hard bun. The soft bun is a trap. They'll know you're a tourist if you get a soft bun. Hard bun, brown mustard, sauerkraut. If you get ketchup, you're never coming back. They're kicking you out and putting your face on the door. Just letting you know.
All right, I appreciate that, Councilman Davis. I won't have to even think about it, right? I already know.
There's an order of the things here. Through the chair to the director, thank you so much for joining us here today. I'll just share, I can share a little perspective, from the neighborhood. But first, I actually would love to learn a bit more about the Produce Perks program. You mentioned it's the highest redemption rate in the state of Ohio, which seems like an undertold success story. I'm not as familiar with this program. It sounds like it's for doubling your dollars for fresh produce if you're on SNAP. Can you tell us more, and then tell us more about why we're the best in Ohio?
To the councilman through the chair. So the traditional farmers market program is what you're talking about. It's like when you swipe your EBT card, it doubles your dollars. Because Westside Market isn't a farmers market, frankly, I don't think the program is funded at a level that could handle doing that at the West Side Market. So what we do instead is it's a specific program around like coupon vouchers. So they get a booklet of like in $5 increments of about, I think, $120 worth of free produce that they have several months that they can spend those dollars. They don't have to spend them all that day. They can kind of spend them as they come. So essentially, you know, every week they could come and spend $15 or $20 at the market, and then the merchants like redeem them like cash, and then our partner Fair reimburses the merchant for those dollars as if they were cash. And I think the reason why the West Side Market is so successful is because we have preserved the fresh food tradition so well here. And I think every zip code in Cleveland comes to the market. And I think it's really, I think, a testament also to our partners who really get the word out. It's a testament to our produce vendors who help people use them. And I think it's also a reflection of the need in our community, which is very great.
Well, through the chair, I mean, that's exactly on my mind as well. That part of Ohio City is incredibly diverse. We have, you know, $1 million townhouses around the way, but we also have 2 large public housing developments right there. The ward I represent is the second highest, has the second highest number of folks in public housing. And to make sure that they have a home in the market as well, that the market is home to everybody at every income level across the spectrum is an essential part of the market's identity. So just thank you for highlighting that, and just again, from my own understanding, what is a redemption rate for? Does it mean
Sorry, say that again.
What is a redemption rate for produce perks? I don't understand. That you redeem it, you don't swipe it.
So to the councilman through the chair. So like similar to a gift card, you know, you buy a gift card. And you give it to your friend, and your friend may or may not use it, right? So people come and get the coupons, and the redemption rate is how many of the coupons, if they give out $40,000 in coupons, how many people actually spend those dollars. So in other places, the redemption rate might be closer to 60 or 70%, and we're over consistently between 90 and 95% of the coupons we give out are redeemed, which I think, one, speaks to the fact that the market has things that people want at it, and two, that there is great need in Cleveland.
Through the chair, yeah, thank you for explaining it. The gift card metaphor made perfect sense to me. An additional thing I do want to highlight is your foot traffic increased 30% in the first year that you took your job. That's an astonishing metric, and then 22% on top of that. I mean, first question is, what do you credit those increases to? Is it the Rosemary effect?
To the councilman through the chair, you know, I think there's a number of things, but you know, one of the things merchants consistently were most eager for was marketing at the market. And I think people think of marketing kind of in traditional ways, like, do we have billboards up? But a lot of our job is keeping the market in the news. What are we doing? What new program are we launching? It can be as simple as we put patio chairs up. The plus and the minus sometimes of the market is the media is willing to come no matter what, for good, bad, and ugly, right? But our job is to harness it and get it there for as much good as possible and really get people excited. And I think our marketing director, Patrick, has done really a phenomenal job in consistently finding stories, and not just finding stories on cleveland.com, but like through all the media platforms, whether it's social media, whether it's Cleveland Magazine, whether it's, you know, whether it's any of those forms. I think he's done, you know, getting on TV stations, things like that. I think the market is on people's minds, and I think, you know, kind of keeping things fresh, always thinking at a quarterly basis of what's something new that's coming in the next quarter that is going to be interesting, that like this new thing, Fresh Fundamentals, might be a hook for these 100 people, but this other thing is going to be a hook for the next 100 people. And so I think it's just kind of at a consistent basis coming up with things that really are a genuine hook. And I think people are, you know, curious to see what does the transition to a nonprofit mean? What does it look like? You know, should I come back for the first time after many years, or should I come more regularly?
Through the chair. Well, marketing, that was the trick, is telling the story and telling it often and well. Okay, good. I should probably try the same myself. Through the chair, it didn't escape my notice that 900,000 people in the market is a very high number, almost 1 million. And I'm going to put this, I'm going to just make a small point here. Ohio City doesn't have a rec center, and Tremont doesn't have a rec center, and Downtown doesn't have a rec center, but we have the market. That's the big building that the city owns in our community in that chunk of town. There is the rec center on 65th and Lorraine, Michael J. Zone. It's got a great pool. But east of 65th, there isn't, to the river, there's no rec center. But we do have the market. And boy, I looked up in the budget book what the attendance rates were at our rec centers, 600,000. So this West Side Market has 30% more foot traffic, more folks entering its doors than the entirety of our rec centers combined. That's an astonishing asset to my community, and really does add to the vitality and vibrancy, as well as my daily shopping, my weekly shopping. So I just want to thank you for that. I'll add, I see the market as a model in many ways for the way that the city manages its assets. The idea that, yes, $23 million is a lot of money, or 30-some over since 2014, understanding that it's a complicated algorithm to figure it out. But you're on a path to sustainability and prosperity, as I understand it, by 2030. And if every city asset could tell that same story, I think we'd be in a much different, much more exciting city. So I look forward to taking lessons from the market, applying it to public auditorium, rec centers, pools. They're just bringing this mindset across town to figure out how to make sure our stuff can sustain itself over time for next generations. It's part of what we're here for. So, thank you, and I'll yield from there.
All right, thank you, Councilman Davis. That was a great point there you made. Give us an alternative way of thinking about it. Next, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Gray.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you. Glad you're here. Present mean everything, especially in budget hearing. Tell you that. I just want to make a point on your programming for the merchant, for the Central Kitchen partnership. I think that was extraordinary how you had that set up for the incubators, for the young women that came in and set up their incubators. I think that was a year, Chair, to the Director?
To the Councilwoman, that's correct.
Okay, and just saying, when they were there, did you gross any revenue? Chair,
To the
Director.
Councilwoman, repeat the question. Did CPMC or did the merchants themselves?
With the merchants, and also did you charge them as well?
To the
For
Councilwoman,
setting up their incubators?
so Central Kitchen, on behalf of the market, went after a grant to allow those folks to be in the market. So we worked with Central Kitchen, and Central Kitchen paid like a bit of a partnership fee to have the stand, but we didn't directly charge the merchants anything. I think it was a great success story, and I think we learned a lot. I think we would love to be able to do a lot more of that in the future, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to kind of bring some of those programs in-house, still work with Central Kitchen to help us find folks, but to your point, we want to be able to understand, is the merchant who's testing this brick and mortar space, are they not just what is their gross revenue, but are they making a profit off of it? Like maybe being able to partner them up with somebody in the market to be a mentor or things like that, or really be able to look at the program in a way that we can adapt ourselves. So we're excited. This year we had to put some things on pause because of HVAC and a bunch of different construction elements, but we're really excited to be able to rethink about that, and I think deepen those kinds of programs. That's so much of my team is excited to be at the market for things like that. It's like we can't wait. There's this pent up list of ideas and things that everyone just can't wait for, and I think partnerships like that and opportunities like that are just some of the things that my team is most excited about for the future.
I'm glad to hear that, because I knew one of the vendors that was there for that time, and she really enjoyed herself. Her name is Ego, and she lives in Ward 3, and I know her history, and I know the type of food she has served, but she really enjoyed the time that she was there. So saying that, Chair, to the Director, are you planning on bringing that particular type of new kitchen back after the renovation? Chair, to the Director.
To the Councilwoman through the Chair, I don't know if we'll have that exact partnership, but
we do have stands that are available for lease, that will be available for lease. And so one of the things we're working on is, what are the products that are missing from the market? What are the things that we need to represent better? And so when that application process comes out, she would have the ability to, apply for a stand at the market if she wanted to be a permanent merchant, or, there could be opportunities for her to, even if you don't have a stand in the market, one of the, I think, exciting things about the commercial kitchen is that my hope is that it provides a space maybe for whether it's her or somebody else, but we have a lot of folks at farmers markets who, they've kind of maxed what they can do at farmers markets, or they're producing at home, but they could make more revenue if they had a commercial kitchen. And I think the market is such a great opportunity in our commercial kitchen to produce product, help them kind of take the next step in their business. And whether that's a partnership to sell something through an existing stand, or they're able to grow enough to have their own stand, or whether the West Side Market is able to have, sort of a made at the market stand that, combines everybody's products. I think those are all the kinds of things that we're excited that the commercial kitchen would be able to do, and, to have folks like her at the market on a regular basis.
Thank you for that, because I know all the other vendors also enjoy being there too. And one more last question. Are you planning, Chair to the Director, are you planning on keeping the breakfast hubs?
The Johnny Hot Dog, is that?
Yes, the Johnny Hot Dog.
So far, Johnny Hot Dog has no plans to go. So yeah, you can keep getting your breakfast sandwich.
Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilwoman. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Richard Starr.
Thank you, Chair. Only questions I'm really aligned with is similar to some of the things that Councilman Dean Polenzek brought up, is the amount of investment that has been brought into the West Side Market with those numbers, and also understanding the transition, obviously, for the operations from being managed from the city into a nonprofit. I believe when we talked about this maybe 2 years ago, 3 years ago, it was to the point to make sure that we're not running or operating at a deficit no more. And I can't remember from the records or the notes and agenda if we had an actual timeline from when that would take place. But during to this presentation, I believe it's saying the goal is by 2030 to be able to operate without needing subsidies from the city. So through the chair, can you correct me on that, Executive Director, regarding this, just to make sure I understand that we're moving in that right direction, or if we got some bottlenecks or some holes that's causing that not to happen? Was it supposed to be as soon as you became a nonprofit, or was it supposed to be a 7-year time frame for clarity through the chair?
To the councilman through the chair, it was always anticipated that it would be closer to a 5 to 7 year timeline.
Okay, and then within that 5 to 7 year timeline, right now we're currently, last year we operated with a deficit of $827,000. Or what was that number through the chair?
So to the councilman through the chair, we only operated the market for part of the year in 2024, and based on that partial year of operation, like the year long loss for that budget was projected to be $827K. Yes.
Last year we was operating with a deficit of $827,000, and then we're projected this year to operate at a deficit of $783,000, and then the following year is $717,000, and then in 28, $438,000, and then we're supposed to be at a less deficit in 2029 at $74,000, and then we're supposed to make a profit in 2030 at around $199,000, well, rounded up to about $200,000. And I would say, how are you able to determine these potential changes or these actual net operating incomes? How are you able to project it to be this way and see how everything will turn around by 2030 to be a profit of almost $200,000? What is your main targets, or how are you creating these numbers or projecting these to the chair?
To the councilman through the chair. So these projections are a combination of using the sort of rigorous research and investigation that was done through the master plan to look at what could happen through a variety of revenue sources, which included the event, the commercial kitchen, the North Arcade, and that research included looking at markets across the country, what they could generate. It included looking locally at other examples and things like that. So that's how the master plan came up with some of those projections for when renovation of the building was complete. And then, I've sort of began, as we learn more, being in the building, trying to make some tweaks, trying to, ease into revenue, understanding that, to expect something to go from not existing to 100% in 1 year is probably, it would be great if it can, and that's where, my goal is always to exceed the budget, but how can I paint a realistic picture or give space to ensure that, to some of Councilman Harsh's points, that this is a possibility. And so, I think, projections are what, I think council had requested projections, so I wanted to make sure you guys had them. My goal is, to continuously update those, to be transparent with you guys if things are changing, but I think, this is a realistic path to 2030.
Okay, and that's good. I definitely want to make sure that we're not here as council members trying to pin projects versus neighborhoods or anything like that. But from the historic context, we've West Side Market obviously been operating at a deficit. Do you know how long have we been operating at a deficit through the chair to anyone at the table?
To the councilman, my understanding is that in 2014, the market stopped operating, started operating in the red and began dipping into reserves that then got drained. That was the information I've been shared with, but beyond that, I don't know.
To the assistant finance director.
Through the chair, the council person really dipped into the red as far as subsidies around 2020 when COVID came. Prior to that, it was deriving a slight profit, but I will note we had tons of deferred maintenance and things that needed to be fixed that probably weren't fixed. But the subsidies for the West Side Market really didn't start until COVID set in, when people couldn't go to the market, vendors couldn't set up.
Thank you, and that makes complete sense. Obviously, when COVID came, a lot of change in our market, as well as just how we operate still today. So that makes completely more sense to understand. But also, just from the amount of dollars invested into the West Side Market, which is, I believe, over 100 years old as far as the facility, which is very important. And then also within the dollars and operations that we are currently operating, do we have any OEO goals that have been completed so far within this project? Is that something that you have data to see how and who? I know you got this slide of different construction and project partners. I just want to see through the chair if you can send that over to our staff. And if OEO was watching, I would like to look at where we are at with our goals of who is actually working on these project initiatives in the West Side Market after receiving city and taxpayer dollar support. But then also, I know it says from revenue growth, when you talk about the annual rental revenues, what is the annual rental revenues currently? And then within the projections going into 2030, do you have those type of potential numbers that you can talk to the chair?
To the councilman, so we do, on the first point around OEO, we work closely with OEO and the team there. They've been to the site multiple times. We were part of the online portal tracking, and so our construction partners are sending reports and uploading the data there as appropriate. We're doing, participating in the internship programs and things like that. So there's a young woman who's on site and has been with us most of the year, who's learning about construction management, and she's really been terrific. And as well as, meeting obviously the minority and female in business and Cleveland-based business goals as well. So yeah, happy to work with OEO and work with folks to get you whatever numbers you request. I'm not totally sure I understand the second question on the merchant rent side. Is that what you're asking?
Yes, what is the current annual rental revenues for those small vendors who are there at the facility? What is the average cost for them each year annually, through the chair?
So the total revenue from that is about 1.18 million for 2026 from merchant rent.
Okay, and it's projected to increase by 3 million or almost 4 million by 2030?
So the merchant rent line item, the current merchants, the Market Hall and Produce Arcade and Basement Rent, is projected to increase to 1.4 million, and then the sort of total program revenue is slated to increase to 3.7, but that includes, for example, the North Arcade is completely vacant right now, so there are no merchants in there generating revenue because it's under construction. So that has its own line item, and so you'll see that that's a separate line item in the budget. The commercial kitchen in the basement doesn't exist yet, so that's a rental space that then becomes part of those incomes. And then the event space, that's the program line item that becomes part of those incomes. So those Market Hall and Produce Arcade merchants, that would be a pretty wild number to think we could go from that. So yeah, no, that there's not an anticipation that their rents are doubling.
Thank you. And as I wrap up, Chair, I think the amount of investment that we've put into the West Side Market is for a good cause. And it's a good need for the neighborhood and the community, as well as the residents, but also would be remiss if I didn't bring up the type of investment that's needed as far as food insecurities in all neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland. When you talk about north of $38+ million of an investment into one entity, and that's great for that entity, but what about the equity around the city of Cleveland, which is something that we've talked about, and we talk about, and we talk about, and that's all it is, but just conversation and no action. And I urge my colleagues to, as we talk about this budget and we go into reconciliation, we should be putting in some type of program using dollars to make sure other neighborhoods are not still operating where they don't have a grocery store within walking distance of their house, or they don't have opportunity where you can have small vendors to be able to really operate, to be able to solve this issue. Downstate is looking to deliver dollars from Columbus to be able to help with these food insecurities and these challenges with their different new House bill, I believe 543, and we passed a resolution in support of that, and I thank my colleagues for that. But also I will say, what are we doing locally to make sure that we are retaining? What is our community investment plan? All the different things that is needed, because it's kind of hard to go to residents and have meetings in the community about the lack of grocery stores or the lack of good quality food. And when you talk about just the health disparities, having good quality food can change you from having these diabetes, having health problems or things like that if you can get good quality food. So I look forward to us as we go through reconciliation as a council to say we need to invest in food insecurities and making sure we address that and use the same type of energy and effort we've done for the West Side Market to be able to solve this problem as well. And I yield, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. We're going to go to Councilman Shaw.
All right. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate your time this morning. Good morning. And I appreciate my colleague, Councilman Starr's comments. I'm actually going to pick up along the same lines and wanted to just touch upon and understand a little more about, part of the mission statement for the Public Market Corporation is to further make the local food system more accessible and equitable. And I think this is exactly I wanted to understand more of what you envision how we can leverage this public investment and how we can bring about this understanding of how to run this market to other neighborhoods. If you could speak to that, Director, through the chair.
To the councilman through the chair. Yeah, so I think we've just started on that with things like the produce perks and things like that. But I think whether it's CMHA or things like that, there's a huge opportunity to develop programs directly with residents of public housing, or even a specific public housing, or partnerships with a school in the long run. I think there's other opportunities to think about how can the market play a role in other communities. I think one of the benefits that continues to make the market accessible currently is that we, outside of Public Square, one of the most well transited corners in all of the region. And so, I think even just doing things on site increases access so much, because you can ride the Red Line without getting off all the way from East Cleveland to the market, right? And so it really allows folks from a pretty far distance in Cleveland to get to the market in a pretty easy way. And even if they have a grocery store closer, it might still be easier to get to the market. And so what are the things we can both do off-site, take programming, whether it's nutrition education or entrepreneurship around food, or even programs that access food, like are there opportunities for, in the long run, food delivery programs or things like that? I know our merchants are interested in things like that for themselves at like both a for-profit level, but also there are other ways to do things like that. And so I think one of the other pieces of the project is a teaching kitchen, which I see as like incredibly essential to our community. Being able to cook healthy food yourself makes such a huge difference in, we were talking about health disparities and things like that, and diabetes, and just, even from the small food as medicine program that was surrounded by, targeted at diabetes. I mean, people were going off their diabetes medicine and things like that, and this is like a year-long program, and so I think those are just like a variety of ways, but I think this is something, I'm really eager as we kind of are finishing out construction and things like that. How can we begin to talk with council members who have concerns in their neighborhood? What opportunities are there for us, for the market to leverage what we have to be a part of the solution across the city? And I'm excited, and I know my team is excited for those kinds of things at the market.
I appreciate that, Director. And through the chair, I think one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot too, during the campaign, we talked to a lot of people about the need for affordable groceries. And oftentimes, the West Side Market was brought up, oftentimes as a point of frustration or a negative thing about how a public entity is not able to operate a grocery store. And for me, the point of frustration was more about along the lines of the fact that, the West Side Market is unique in many ways. It is not simply a grocery store. It is a tourist destination. It is a historic building that requires different types of upkeeps and renovation that I think shouldn't be looked at the same way of looking at a normal grocery store that we can import to other parts of the neighborhood. So going back to my colleague, Councilman Davis's point of just how unique of a asset this is, I would also, caution folks against thinking of the same investment cost-benefit analysis that we have with the West Side Market for the other stores that we could potentially run. But what I'm really interested in hoping to explore is to figure out how we can leverage economies of scale with produce acquisition, and how we can talk about understanding and learning from what you are doing to increase the ability for other grocery store operators around the city to be able to leverage that and be able to have more affordable groceries in other parts of the neighborhood. And what I'm hoping to find some money as we go down the budget route. But that's something that I think that's just something to think about, is how I hope that your team is also thinking about those things of like, how can we understand and broaden that understanding of the food system so that we can bring those benefits out to the other neighborhoods, whether it is simply through the same market or through different models. So I appreciate that. And then going back to the public transit portion, I couldn't help but think about, I know there's been a pretty high profile fight about the accessibility and the expansion of the West 25th bus lanes. Do you have an understanding of what percentage of your clientele or foot traffic is coming from public transit versus parking?
I think a couple years ago there might have been it might have been one of the questions on the customer intercept survey, but I don't I don't remember the result. I mean, the majority of people are driving, but what I would say is a lot of our regular customers, so even though there's a high volume of people who come to the market a few times a year and things like that, but then there's this core group of people who are walking distance, are things like that. And, I wasn't part of how they executed that customer intercept. So even just the doors they stood at to do that may have impacted which, how it skewed customers. We're in the process of getting ready to do another customer intercept survey. And I think one of the things my team is eager to have is just generally more data, whether it's around how the businesses in the market are doing, whether it's about customers. That's, one tricky aspect of the market is that there hasn't been tons of data to think about how do we formulate programs based on driving more revenue or driving more, we're getting folks from this public housing, this CMHA facility in the neighborhood, but not that one. Why is that? So, over time, I hope, it's going to be tricky, but over time, I hope that we can get more of that kind of data so that we can really better understand. And then, potentially that becomes a solution that we can work with a council person on to say, hey, did you know it's only a 5-minute bus ride from your community to the West Side Market and that there are groceries here, and it doesn't solve the fact that there's not a space right there, but maybe there's some education and some promotion around things like that, or helping them try out the market for the first time through a program or something.
Absolutely. And I have a suspicion that a good amount of those folks that are regulars that are walking and taking transit are also going to have a good overlap with the folks who are SNAP eligible and are the folks that we're trying to target with making sure they have affordable groceries. So I'm excited to see that increase, hopefully in the future. Wanted to just briefly touch upon as well give a quick shout out also to one of the members of your team you mentioned earlier, Camille Rose Dixon, your Director of Development. It seems like she's done amazing work, so I wanted to congratulate her and your team on the increased assets that you've brought. We work together at Legal Aid, and I'm proud of what she's been able to do as a Legal Aid Union member, former Legal Aid Union member. So definitely please pass on my regards for that. And I wanted to just final touch upon the Produce Perks Fair program that you have. Can you just explain a little more of how those booklets are handed out? Is that a program that we can expand or provide for different neighbor wards to provide to their constituents? Would they be able to then travel to West Side Market to use that? Can you talk a little bit more about that and where there might be a potential opportunity for council to fund it more to see more people get affordable groceries?
To the councilman through the chair. So the program is open to anyone who's eligible for TANF. So folks come from all over the city already for the program. FAIR works with Produce Perks Midwest, and basically they do there's folks who are subscribed, so they do a text blast, and it'll say, this Saturday at West Side Market, there's a TANF coupon, Produce Perks giveaway, come from 10 to 1 to receive your coupon booklets. They've also increased, they've also kind of updated the program in that they can pre-register folks. So they'll pre-register to ensure that folks maybe who live far away and can't get there, because there'll often be a line before the market even opens of people excited to get the coupons, and so to ensure that folks don't have to do that queuing and things like that, they can pre-register, and then but what they also do is they only pre-register a certain percentage of the coupons, so that folks who do walk on site or don't pre-register still have the opportunity. And then we usually do the program on a Saturday and a Sunday. So if by, I'm not sure what the time is, but say if by noon on Sunday folks haven't come to pick things up, they release those, and then they get those given away as well.
Thank you for explaining that.
And that would be something you could include. We could, usually we don't know too far in advance when it's happening, but those are things we could work with council to help promote more widely.
That's great. Thank you, Director. And one final thing I'll just note upon is that my understanding is that the janitorial services and other staff right now are union. We want to make sure that is not one of the things we look at ways to cost cut or get greater return on our investment. Any public money that's going out, we want to make sure supports union jobs. So we hope to see that continuing in the future as well. And thank you for your time. I yield, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Shaw. Finally, we're going to go to Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to our CFO, what, the $783,000, what will that go toward? Or Mr. Gentile, or?
Through the chair to the councilman, so per the new agreement, CPMC, the third quarter of the prior year will give us their estimated revenues and expenses. So if they're running at a deficit, which is that 783, that's what we transfer over to them as the support payment.
No, I understand that, but Mr. Chairman, I don't know your title, Nicole, so. Budget Administrator. What, do we know what it will go toward, though?
Through the chair to the council person, it's basically, we take a look at their total operations. So it goes to the, the whole operations of the market, and that's the shortfall in revenue.
So I asked that because, Mr. Chairman, to our CFO, on page 349, I've noticed that under utilities, they haven't budgeted. I'm assuming this book is the budget for our 783. So they have not budgeted for brokered gas, or electric. And what I'm looking at here, even going further, there's no contractual services, no security services, no materials and supplies. What I'm asking is that I want to make sure that the money that we're going to put into the West Side Market is going to go toward the actual operations of the West Side Market and not salary.
Through the chair to the council person, I think part of it might be salary based upon the people that are running the market. The new model with the lease is why you don't see anything budgeted this year. They pay all of those bills directly. We don't pay those anymore. That happened sometime early last year. So now when they do a budget, I think they passed out a sheet. It'll show all the breakout of all the expenses, and then at the bottom there's the deficit that matches what our support payment is.
All right, and then Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Gentile, then on 350, I've also noticed, charges for telephone exchange have been zeroed out. Every department, including enterprise funds, and we've had this conversation for the last 9 days, are paying for telephone exchange, right? And I see that that's zeroed out. Waste collection, I want to make sure, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO, that it's still going to be the city of Cleveland that picks up the waste, and we're not going to privatize the waste collection at the market. And it doesn't look like they're going to use our print shop or our motor vehicle maintenance. So again, I come back to the 783, and I want to make sure that we're not going to be offsetting a privatization of waste collection, that they're going to be continuing to use Cleveland Public Power, that it's just a red flag to me that we turned the West Side Market over, right? And okay, that's done. But even their projections on the sheet that they passed out, a little skeptical, only because, a big portion of their 2030 profit is the arcade food hall that's not built yet. And I'm hoping that it gets built and it gets successful. But I'm also looking at the fact that, are these projections overinflated, and that we're not going to continue this subsidy past 2030 when, their vendor rent increase almost coincides with salary and employee cost increase. So I'm looking at this, and it's the operating expenses are, staying in line with their actual service revenue, and the projections just don't look right to me, right? And I hope you start generating money and don't come to us sooner than 2030. But I really think that this is very optimistic on their part, but we need to be more conservative in our financial approach to this on this side. So, you know, the 783,000, what happens if it's more? Obviously, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO, we have to come up with more than 783,000. Just like if their revenues increase, right, we have to come up with less than 783,000. So I'd like to see what the breakdown is going to be, maybe quarterly throughout the year, as to what our what our subsidy is going to at the market. I'm assuming that it should go toward actual operating the market. And when I see that they're taking operating stuff like utilities and stuff like that off our books and putting it on their books, which is great, but are they taking that off the books only to increase in salary? Right? And then I want to make sure, obviously people need to get paid to work, but if we're subsidizing the West Side market, it needs to be actually toward the operating and not, and I hate to say it, but somebody's going to get a $10,000 raise, you know, because you know, because they've been there for 5 years or whatever it is. Is that something that the city's continuing to do or to subsidize, right? And inflated salaries, because we don't know what their salaries are over at the West Side market. Are we paying an employee $200,000? Are we paying, you know what I'm saying? I mean, are we paying them? Are we overinflating salaries in the subsidy and then not putting it toward, you know, general operating, you know, keeping the market going through utilities and maintenance and all that other stuff? So if you could touch on that, Mr. CFO.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, I can talk a little bit first to the projections. I know you covered a lot there. So I did take a look at the projections. They did send those over before they came to the table today. I feel like they're realistic, maybe slightly aggressive and optimistic, but for the most part, those are realistic. If they had come to me and said, you know, we're going to be eliminating the subsidy by 2028, 2029, I'd be concerned. That would raise some red flags. But I think the 4 years, I think they have a plan in place. I think they've done things to boost revenue over the long term. In terms of the operations, I mean, from the city's point of view, and I would look to our guests to maybe explain more on the line item stuff, when there's a deficit in the operations, we're subsidizing their operations. So, you know, it's essentially, we send them over the money that they're short, and then it's put towards their operation, you know, based on their budget and based on what they're falling short on. So, you know, essentially, I guess I could turn it over to if you have anything else to add to that. But
to the councilman through the chair, I don't totally know what your specific question. I mean, I understand the general, you know, the general point. But yeah, I mean, yes, we are now paying utilities and things like that, and we are not somehow projecting that we're going to spend less on utilities. If you look at the line items, that's like one of the areas we are projecting to spend the most more on over the course of the years. You know, I've spent my entire career trying to like do good for the community. Like my entire outlook on life is like do good work for good people that improves the community. So I think that's the outlook of my whole team as well. But obviously, you know, the city's job is to make sure things are in line and correct. And so, you know, waste collection is still. We still contract with the city for that. We are using CPP, and CPP is who we're working with on the new electrical service that's coming into the building. So, you know, we will be using CPP in perpetuity. So, you know, I think those things, you know, maintenance and repair, those kinds of things, you know, refrigeration maintenance and all of those kinds of things, those are all the general operations of the market.
And Mr. Chairman, to Ms. Mudry, right? Mudry. Nobody's questioning your intent, right? Nobody's doing that, but we have a fiscal responsibility
Totally
to
understood.
oversee. So we're not saying that. But when one of the projections in the year that we will no longer subsidize the market is something that hasn't even been built yet, and in hope, I mean, to rent something out for $1 million a year, that's a pretty big grab, right? Considering it's not even done yet. Even your first year of it being opened at $425,000, that's a big grab. that ends up being, if your projection doesn't come to light, it's on the taxpayers of the city of Cleveland to subsidize that. So I'm just a little skeptical I hope it all works out. Do not get me wrong. But is there a time where, how long did we contract, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO with CPMC? I know it's since 2024, but is there an end date with CPMC?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's our understanding that it's a long-term agreement. I don't have the exact dates, but we can follow up with that.
Do you know?
To the councilman, through the chair, the ground lease is 60 years, but the support agreement is a less period of time. So after a certain period of time, the city is no longer under obligation to support the market, even if it's not breaking even.
And when is that date, Mr. Chairman and Ms. Moudry?
To the councilman, I have to look that up. It was, I think, at least 7 years, but it's not 20 or 30 or something.
Okay,
like
so
that.
Mr. Chairman of the CFO, at some point, as for the lease with the market, whoever, I understand the ground leases, we did the 70 years or whatever it was, but we'll just say, we don't know for sure, we'll just say it's 7 years. If at the end of the 7 years, CPMC, do you have the opportunity to either walk away or continue to go, or is the city off the obligation to fund the West Side Market at the end of the 7 years, no matter who's running it?
So through the chair to the councilman, I'd probably have to get with law to look at the specifics. I don't want to
All right.
give you the
If you-
wrong
if you-
answer to that.
All right, if you could just let us know that. And then my last question, Mr. Chairman, to the CFO is the $783,000. I know you're going to tell me the general fund, right? But where from the general fund does it come from? Does it come from Parks and Rec? Where does that money actually, where in the budget do we find the $783,000?
Through the chair on page 281. $281.
So it's in the transfer, right? Okay. All right, and then I know we're getting into this later, but the other funds is just, Mr. Chairman of the CFO or our team, that's just money that's just sitting in the general fund to be transferred out, correct? It's not coming out of a department or anything like
Yeah,
that.
through the chair to the councilman, that's correct. Yep.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good luck.
All right, Councilman Casey, we really appreciate your digging in deep into these numbers. Is there any other questions on the West Side Market? Oh, Councilman, I didn't even know you was here. Councilman Kevin Conwell.
With a issue in landmarks in my neighborhood. You know, what I don't like, I like things to be efficient. I like things to be, I know we gave millions of dollars. When was this, last year or the year before last? What was it, $20 million through the chair? How much did this council give last time? 20 million? We gave millions. And my argument back then,
Through the chair to the councilman, it was 23 million.
23 million, so I was 3 million shy. So are we going to have to keep subsidizing and subsidizing and subsidizing? And I got a right to ask that question. Are we going to keep subsidizing? I got the East Side Market that might even go under pretty soon. And then when I turn around, and then you'll have people say, well, let them go to the West Side Market, Councilman. A mother with 3 children or 2 children, they have to put her kids on the bus to go to the West Side Market. And you can't even get an apple in my neighborhood. You can't even get an apple. If we're going to keep subsidizing this, the West Side Market, then I need to make sure that on my neighborhood and East Side Market, and it's their money also. It's their money too. It's my residents' money also that we sending over there to the West Side Market, that we're taking care of at the East Side Market as well. And I even mentioned that to you a couple of months ago. Isn't that correct? I'm always talking about the East Side Market, and it might go under. And before they integrated that area into Ward 9, the East Side Market was closed for years and years and years and years. But when a fire happened at the West Side Market, Mr. Chairman, guess what they did? They took care of the West Side Market. How you gonna tell your residents, you dropping $23 million over there, then you give it another 700 some odd thousand to the West Side Market, but I got nothing for you? That's not funny. That's not funny at all. When you see mothers and people in abject poverty in my neighborhood, and they got to catch the bus because some of them can't even afford a car to go over there to the West Side Market. So why do we keep subsidizing and subsidizing and subsidizing? That's not efficient. And you know it, Finance Director.
So through the chair to the councilman, I know we discussed this a little bit earlier, and our guest ran through a very good.
But you need my vote right now, and I'm upset
Oh,
about
absolutely.
it.
No,
And
I'm going to address your concerns. So,
Right.
you know, we did go through the plan, and I believe our guests handed out a copy of their budget with their projections, and you know, they're projecting that you know, we will not be subsidizing anymore by 2030, and there's a few things that they're working on that maybe our guests can go back over again, you know, that will contribute to them turning a profit.
To the councilman through the chair. So, you know, as we talked about before, there's a major renovation project which is going to create several new revenue streams, including an event space, including the North Arcade, which doesn't have any merchants in it right now. There's vacancy in the Market Hall, which will be rented out once we complete renovations in there. There's a commercial kitchen being built in the basement, which will provide revenue. So those are all new revenue sources that over the course of the next several years will allow us to reduce and then eliminate city subsidy. As you know, as a fellow resident and neighbor, you know, I just want to emphasize that folks do go to the West Side Market, and to your point, it, you know, they do have to travel. But I think it is a place that even when there are grocery stores in your neighborhood, people pass grocery stores intentionally to go to the West Side Market because they want the experience of being able to support small businesses. They want the experience of being able to be in an authentic place. And so regardless of where they live, the market is a place they want to be. It's not just a place of necessity because they don't have places in their neighborhood. People choose to go to the market from all over Northeast Ohio, from every zip code in the city of Cleveland. Yes, because some might because they don't have something in their neighborhood, but many because they want to be able to build a relationship with their butcher and understand the product they're getting. Even standard grocery stores don't always offer the products people are looking for. Many of our merchants offer things that, you know, people can't find elsewhere. And so I think it's also a really critical place for, you know, building democracy. We had voter registration at the market. It's a place where people of all walks of life come together, and there are very few third spaces that are truly bringing people from different perspectives together. And so I think the West Side Market has a lot of value in a lot of ways, but it's also, you know, something that brings folks together. And the East Side Market is, of course, a critical thing as well. And I just, you know, I think the market is interested in helping be a long-term solution and continuing conversation. So, you know, I would just invite you, councilmen, to come meet me at the market. Let's tour it. Let's think about ways that the market can be supportive of ensuring folks that are our neighbors have better access to fresh food.
One thing I'm saying, when you look at the West Side Market, and it's like the tales of two cities. And when you look at the East Side Market, they kept it abandoned for almost 15 years. And they had to get another operator to put in money and champion for it. But when it comes down to the West Side Market, all those things you mentioned, we have to catch the bus to go way on the West Side. And all the good things. How come we can't have the same things in our neighborhood? They pay their taxes too. They pay their taxes also. How come we can't have the same thing over there? Everything you narrated. Why do children have to go way on the West Side? with their parents, and sometimes 2 and 3 children, and you got a single mother, the head of the household, she's taking them way on the west side. And when they look around, how come we can't have that also on the east side? And if that east side market closed, because Neon is under receivership, I look at risk and threats. If that east side market closed, you better treat them the same way, because we still own the east side market. And you better treat them the same way we treat the west side market. It need to be a sense of urgency right there. Because in my neighborhood, I'm a cancer survivor. We have high rates of cancer. We have diabetes, all this stuff here, because we don't have the same access that they have on the west side. As my council member and my colleague, Councilmember Richard Starr, said, he has to go to the gas station just to get a half a gallon of milk. Just to get a half a gallon of milk. And so we have a sense of urgency there, but we don't have a sense of urgency in Glenville or in the other neighborhoods on the east side. I'm serious, that's wrong. That's wrong. We put another $700,000 here, and we have grocery stores in other parts of the city that we could spend that $700,000 on to make sure that they have a grocery store, to make sure that they have one. And you know what? Your bosses, the people at this table, your bosses, the same boss that I have, they complain about it in the community meetings. And they jump on us about it. Because you know what? This is their money too. This is their money too that's being spent. And when they pass by the West Side Market, they see people over there, but then they got to go back to Glenville and Fairfax and Huff, and they don't see things like that in their neighborhood. So we better, if that East Side Market closed, I'm going to be here. And if not, what I'm going to do is protest. And have people protesting, maybe even the West Side Market, so we can shine a light on that inequality that's right there. And they're sick and tired of being sick and tired of not having a grocery store that's equivalent to the West Side Market. And we keep pumping dollars, my residents' dollars, into that West Side Market. And we have a lot of abject poverty in our community. We have children in my community just go to school just to get a meal. Just to get a meal or just to get a shower in my neighborhood. But then we pump money in here, and then they can't even go to get an apple in the store next to them or go to the gas station to get some milk. Yes, so I do bleed on that. I mentioned it to you also about it. Every chance I get to the chair, to Rosemary, was you the manager over there, the director?
To the councilman, yes, I'm the executive director of the nonprofit.
Right, I mentioned it to you earlier this summer about it.
To the councilman, through the chair, I would love for you to come visit the market and for us to talk about potential solutions. Are there programs that we could develop? You know, I think Famicos has worked on having a farmer's market on 105 near our neighborhood. You know, there's a number of things. And so, you know, again, my door is open anytime for a conversation that, you know, talks about development of programs or talks about anything like that. You know, I'm 3 doors down. Knock on my door anytime. Let's talk.
You know what? Here's the thing. It's just you 3 doors down. You should know, you know what I'm talking about in the neighborhood. You do. You need to go for a ride around or drive through my neighborhood, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you'll see what I'm talking about. Have anyone at this table ever visited the East Side Market? You ever visited East Side Market? And you see what they're going through? They're struggling. Isn't that right? Nobody talk about giving them $700,000. Nobody talk about giving them $700,000. Nobody. That's shameful. That's shameful, this right here. So I don't know where I'm at on voting for this. I don't know. I don't know. I visit that area over there where the West Side Market is at, and I know there's people looking around, well, Councilman should go with it, because everybody, no. I'm tired of seeing that with my residents in the community, and if that where East Side Market go, how will you won't be able to explain it to the residents. Why you drop $23 million into, we could have built a grocery store for the people on the East Side with $23 million. And when you look at your numbers, you had a health director coming up here. Diabetes is out of control over there. Cancer, all these kind of things in that area. But we're putting $23 million over there, and we're going to drop close to another $1 million over there because they didn't get it right. So that's where I'm at. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Conwell, Councilman Conwell. We really appreciate your passion. Is there any other questions on the West Side Market before we move on? All right, Director, I do have a couple asks of you. Is there any closing remarks that you want to say?
Thank you to the chair. I really appreciate the opportunity to have Director Mudry with us today to talk about the West Side Market. I appreciate all of the hours spent discussing the Parks and Recreation budget and all of the services we're working to provide to the community. We look for your continued support, and thank you very much.
All right, Director, we do want an update, like Councilman Casey said, we do want to update on the West Side Market before next year's budget hearing. All right, and we want a tour. Okay, let's pencil in a tour so we can come over there and tour the West Side Market, and so the next year's budget we can see actually what you're saying about all of the improvements you can make, and we can actually get a visual on it. All right, I'm going to turn the gavel back over to the Council President.
Thank you. We're going to bring up Councilman Conwell. You want to start off health before lunch, or do you want me just to get this finance out the way? Do you want me to start off with health, or do you want me to get finance out the way? All right, let's get finance out the way. All right, no, you know what? Go ahead. Margolis has been waiting, man. Just go ahead. Just go ahead. Ready? It's going to be about 5 hours.
You know, I waited all day Friday too, right?
You got it.
Thank you, sir. Okay.
About 5 hours.
Is what it is. 192.
Okay, go for it. Yeah. Yep, exactly.
Health. Be over there.
I'm reading all 5 divisions. That's it.
They know?
Yeah.
What we're going to do is all 5.
Page 192, Department of Public Health, Director David M. Margolius, MD. Page 193, Salaries 2025 Unaudited, $1,391,280. 2026 Budget, $1,601,470. Total Expenditures 2025 Unaudited, $2,439,105. 2026 Budget, $2,782,771. Page 194, Staffing Level 2025 Actual 16, 2026 Budget 18. Page 195, Division of Health, Commissioner Francis Mills. Page 196, Salaries 2025 Unaudited, $1,795,095. 2026 Budget, $2,070,372. Page 197, Total Expenditures 2025 Unaudited, $5,183,728. 2026 Budget, $5,795,723. Page 198, Staffing Levels, 2025 Actual, 28, 2026 Budget, 32. Page 199, Division of Environment, Commissioner Wallace Chambers. Page 200, Total Salaries, 2025 Unaudited, $1,414,603. 2026 budget, $1,807,571. Page 201, total expenditures 2025 unaudited, $4,244,801. 2026 budget, $5,012,946. Page 202, staffing level 2025 actual 26, 2026 budget 28. Page 203, Division of Air Quality, Commissioner David Hearn. Page 204, total salaries 2025 unaudited, $505,564. 2026 budget, $610,362. Page 205, total expenditures 2025 unaudited, $1,199,327. 2026 budget, $1,390,429. Staffing level 2025 actual 8, 2026 budget 9. Page 206, Health Equity and Social Justice, Commissioner Lida Wills. Page 207, total salaries 2025 unaudited, $605,380. 685,380. 2026 budget, $775,762. Page 208, expenditures 2025 unaudited, $1,768,548. 2026 budget, $1,808,886. Staffing levels 2025 actual 8, 2026 budget 9. Mr. Chair.
Director, you have slides for us, and we'll move forward. And
Thank you to council members for hearing public health today. We've been really excited to be your partners over this time and looking forward to good 2026. I'm going to go through these slides rather quickly so that we can get to your questions. But first, I'll introduce Commissioner Francis Mills, Division of Health, Commissioner Lida Wills, Division of Health Equity and Social Justice, and Commissioner Wallace Chambers, Division of Environment. Commissioner David Hearn for Air Quality is on a well-deserved vacation. All right. So first, as you know, Councilman, through the chair, there's a strategic plan that we're still on, and we'll be working on our new strategic plan in 2026 for the next 3 years as part of our accreditation. We are striving to be the most responsive, trusted, and impactful health department in the country. First, the Division of Air Quality. Folks here should know that there are around 40 folks in the Division of Air Quality. Most of them are covered through various grants to do permitting, enforcement, and monitoring. And the ones that you'll see in the budget book are for our outreach, which looks like this. This is some of the work that is happening through our outreach team, where we now have on the open data portal additional data so folks can look at their air quality neighborhood by neighborhood. Division of Environment, you're all very familiar with, and also important to know that much of that is grant funded through food fees. But this is some of the work that that team does, and we've been working closely with you all and code enforcement to keep our residents safe. Local code enforcement is a hot topic, as always, and we've been fully staffed this year, which has helped a lot. In addition to solid waste, garbage, rat abatement, we also have developed our tobacco retailer program, which was launched in January of this year. And we do our lead poisoning work, which not only includes, as it always has, following up on cases of lead poisoning, but we now do prevention as well through the Lead Safe Certificate program that you're all familiar with. Our Division of Health, our epidemiology team has really taken off this year in terms of their production and their work. Now on the open data portal, you can look at live births and deaths in the city of Cleveland. And so we know that question comes up often. And so they've done a ton of work and revamped our website and are often cited by the media. The Division of Health also has our health centers, which in addition to J. Glenn Smith in Glenville, we have 2 mobile units, and we also are moving in 2 or 3 weeks into the Blanket Mills Health Center in Clark Fulton neighborhood out of McCafferty, which is going to become affordable housing. We also do emergency preparedness, which is keeping us prepared for future pandemics related to public health. And our vital statistics is, of all the parts of the health department, this is our most popular feature amongst our residents, and you can see the output metrics in the budget book of how often we are the second largest or most productive vital statistics in the state after Columbus. And we also do food justice. So this is a really important part of our work, of the discussion of West Side Market and East Side Market and supporting farmers. And so that is a team of one now, but looking to grow in the future as well. Division of Health, Equity, and Social Justice, you recently heard about in the Health Committee. So unlike other jurisdictions that declared racism as a public health crisis, the city of Cleveland, when you all declared that, you put money behind that and you put support behind that, you created a whole division, which is unique from a lot of cities, which just created a piece of paper. And so really proud of that, and that's been an incredible team doing great work, getting the word out in the community, running programs that directly work to reduce health disparities and overcome structural racism. And you'll be hearing more about that March 9th through some legislation there. So this is our work around advocacy around HIV. And so as you all know, under the current administration, there have been a lot of threats to access to care. And specifically, people with HIV have been targeted through budget cuts and threats to budget cuts. And so there's been a lot of advocacy, and we've been part of that group and coordinating the Fast Track Cities initiative under Commissioner Wills. And that is the end of my presentation, and I'll just say the commissioners, the team have been outstanding. No, it's not the end of the presentation. There we go. As you can see from this graph, Cleveland Department of Public Health is a popular place to work right now. We are down to 4 general fund vacancies and working on those, getting offers out. When I joined the health department 3.5 years ago, we were at 90 staff, and now we're at 150. And that's credit to the support that you've all given us and the new systems. Really proud of that work, and we do feel we're on our way to become the most responsive, trusted, impactful health department in the country. With that, I'll yield. I know our commissioners are here to take questions.
No, I need to ask you a question. You mentioned the strategic plan that you have. Did you bring it with you?
Yes, always. No. Let's see. Oh, yeah. Here you go.
No, these strategic plans really should be in your budget book because they're correlated with the budget, and we can understand a budget better because it correlates to how you're spending money. And a lot of times when dollars get away from us, because we don't have your strategic plan. And I mentioned it to the mayor. He said next year, the next time you guys come, you're going to have your strategic plan correlating with the budget. So that way we can better understand it. And quarterly, you could give us a quarterly review, the different directors on their strategic plan as well as the budget. And that's how sometimes the budget to get away from us. This is very important. So are you going to have this in the budget book the next time? Because you shortchanging us really not having a strategic plan here. We're looking at numbers, and then we're asking you questions about the numbers. But if you had this in there, it correlates with the numbers. Strategy reviews from your strategic plan.
So to the chair, I think it's a good complement to the budget, and it's something that we can request that Public Health next year supply as an exhibit as part of their presentation. So you guys have it next to you as we're going over the budget.
Right, this would definitely help us out because it shows us the way. And if you, because with plans, they change up. In this budget book, you say yes, and once we give you the money, departments will change some things, or that budget will change because it's a living document. Never, I don't understand it. It's never been put in a book doing finance. It drives me crazy when I read it. I always ask us to give me a strategic plan. I correlate, and then I'll say, well, you change this, you change that. We're reading the numbers. President, this director just brought, and the finance director, no, it correlates with what they're doing. All right, thank you very much. I would say one more thing. I need to see the mobile health mobile. I never been able to get a ride along with you in that mobile health mobile. And you guys have what in there? What kind of resources? I'm screaming through the mic right here. They can't. I'm screaming through the mic.
Okay. Through the chair, absolutely. We'll bring you out. We have a schedule that will get up as soon as the weather gets warm, and there's a interest forum for council members to reach out about events. But we're definitely out there. Hopefully, some folks saw it out in the community this past summer, and we'll be back out there.
Thank you very much. I want to yield to Councilmember Mike Polensek.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, my honorable colleagues, to the director and to your team that is here. This, to me, is one of the most important departments. You know, we have public safety, we have building and housing, we have health, and especially in moderate and low-income neighborhoods. We have found ourselves so often in situations with absentee landlords not maintaining their properties. I was watching on the news last night about what an apartment building in East Cleveland, city of East Cleveland. That to me symbolized everything, the conditions, the horrible conditions in that building where people were being forced to live because they had no other options. But so from a standpoint of health code, but also with regard to food stores, especially convenient type stores, which have proliferated the east side since grocery stores have disappeared. So we're at the mercy of the corner, what I refer to as the Dr. Seuss stores that sell the green eggs and ham. And so they have had a negative impact on our neighborhoods because they repeatedly sell outdated materials and food that is not properly packaged. So I want to get right into this. So on page of your 193, under property rental, under the director's office, what is the property rental for?
Through the chair, that's for our Erie View Plaza building, and that's split up, I believe, amongst the 5 divisions.
Okay, and that's a yearly rent?
Through the chair, correctly.
Okay, because we've been talking about the rents that we've been paying in buildings, private buildings, in light of fact, CMSD has all these empty schools sitting all over the place that just sit there. And so how do we start looking at not only city buildings, city facilities, but then some of these other ancillary government, quasi-government buildings as how we can utilize them rather than continue to paying premium rent for space. So that's for Erie View. Okay. That's what, is that 75 Erie View?
65 and 75 Erie View.
65. Okay, on page 194, under grant revenue, we don't anticipate any grant revenue this year at all?
So through the chair to the councilman, not all grants are in the operations budget. They will be getting grant revenue, but there's nothing in, perhaps Mr. Gentile can explain a little bit better, like what's included and what's not.
Because we know there are federal grants, we know there are state grants, and we want to make sure that we're tapping into everything we can. So would you care to comment on that?
To the chair, the councilman, yes, they have a lot of grant funds but these are multi-year funds. The ones that you see in operations are operational grants.
Okay.
So right now they're not proposed to have any operational grants. They're usually pretty small.
So then I'm going to make the request through the chair, through staff, and you, if you could provide to us all the grant funding you've received for 2025 for the various divisions. I'm going to see what the dollar amount is and what it was for. okay? So, and you're telling me that's not going to show up in any of the divisions, their grant revenue?
Through the chair to the council person, most grant funds will not be in the book unless it's an operations grant.
Okay, I understand that, but so you're going to provide that to us?
Yes, absolutely.
Because we utilize those funds to help operate the health department.
And through the chair, they're all legislated as well, all the spending. So.
Okay. So on 195, under the Division of Health, under metrics, you have childhood immunizations are down. They're down significantly. Touch on that.
Through the chair, and Commissioner can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that was last year we were including flu shots in that metric, and we didn't include it this year.
Okay.
And that's why you can see the consistency
Then
with
where's flu shots
2023.
showing up at?
Flu shots are collected in another data set. And so from 2020 to 2024, we were really focusing on the number of COVID shots that we were given. And so we have a sizable number of folks that are coming through both the health centers to receive flu shots, but we can get you that number.
I'd like to, because I went to J. Glenn Smith and got a flu shot, as I encourage other folks to do. And so I'd like to know, are there any other data points, such as flu shots and others, that we do not have before us?
Through the chair, so as I demonstrated on the slides, I know quickly that if you look at our data and statistics page of our website, there is a ton of data that the health department collects and reports and used by the community, by the health committee here, and by reporters as well as a trusted source of health information in Cleveland. So lots of information.
What immunizations do we provide at this point to our citizens
Through
and
the
their
chair,
children?
all the childhood
All of them.
immunizations, all the previously recommended childhood immunizations.
Okay. Are measles shots up or down?
Through the chair, they are in Cleveland. We're doing okay with our measles vaccination rate. We don't have great data, but we don't have large communities that are under vaccinated like some of our neighboring jurisdictions.
Okay. I want to make sure that we are utilizing Channel 20 and what other avenues we have. I'm just shocked in this country when I see some of the diseases and illnesses that we thought were on their way out back. And it's because of the stupidity we're seeing coming out of Washington and out of Columbus, unfortunately. And we need to make sure that our families, especially our children, are protected in our city. On page 196, Mr. Chairman, under professional services, contractual services, if you could provide to us a list of what those services were in 2025.
Through the chair, yes, we can provide that.
And then also under other contractual as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, I'm gonna write that down. Okay. On page 197, again, so this is why there's nothing for grant revenue here as well, correct?
Through the chair, correct.
Okay. Okay, let me see what we got here. Okay. So are we properly staffed in this section?
Through the
Division
chair,
of Health.
In the Division of Health, we have 2 general fund vacancies right now. One is a public health nurse who is accepted an offer, and the other is a junior clerk. And so we're feeling pretty good about staffing.
Okay. On page 199, under metrics, again, under food complaints addressed, that number is down for 2025. Nuisance complaints addressed are down again for 2025. And lead poisoning referral addressed is down significantly as well. Would you care to touch on that?
Sure. We'll start with lead. There are fewer cases that are of lead poisoning in Cleveland in 2025 compared to 2024 and 2023, which is good news. So that's that direct number of. As far as nuisance complaints, we do think that the implementation of 311 has helped make sure that the complaints being referred to public health are the correct complaints for our department to address, as opposed to other departments like building and housing and public works. And then food complaints, yeah, I think that, just there were fewer food complaints. Same amount of restaurants, but fewer concerns, complaints that were documented to our department this year.
To Mr. Chairman, to the director, to the viewing public who's watching this at home, if they have an establishment in their neighborhood that they believe is not clean or sanitary or selling outdated food items, who should they call?
Through the chair, 311.
311.
Yep.
With his address, name of the establishment, et cetera, et cetera. So I hope the viewing public at home realizes this and becomes more proactive, because these characters that I've come to understand, they wouldn't sell this, the kind of food that they sell in Cleveland. They wouldn't be selling it in Westlake, Olmsted Falls, and Lakewood where they live, okay? So I'm concerned about that. Then let me touch on the issue with Division of Environment, to continue. These are our neighborhood inspectors, health inspectors. And according to your document on 202, you only have 6 public health sanitarians, 1. You have public health sanitarian 2 in training. You have no public health sanitarian 4. And you have under technicians for a grand total of 14. Director, you're trying to tell us that 8 people, basically 8 people, can inspect all of
Through the chair,
the operations in the city of Cleveland?
We have an additional, it looks like 12 inspectors that are covered through food fees, and so they won't appear on your operating budget.
Say that again?
We have an additional 12 inspectors who are covered under the food fees, which is grant.
Okay.
And
so how do we get that information to the finance director and to Mr. Gentile? See, I want to know who's doing what here. So tell me.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I mean, we can get that to
Mr. Chair.
you, an information request. Again, what's in the budget here is specific to the operating budget in the general fund.
Yeah,
But
through the
I understand it, but we want to know who's working our streets, who's working our neighborhoods.
Through the chair, that was I think a request, a pre-audit request. So we did send over all grant-funded positions that you won't see in the book
By
already.
division?
Yes.
Across the
Yeah, through the chair to the councilperson, yes.
Okay.
And if you need something else after you look at
Okay,
let us
so
know.
you're,
and
so
we'll-
Director, I want to get this straight, and to your commissioner. So inspecting neighborhood stores and operations, how many do we have working? How many people we have out there?
Through the chair, so we have 6 local code inspectors, which is up from 4. We've
Right.
always had 4. You all increased us to 6. We got fully staffed last year. Thank you. And we have 15 plus 4 managers who all have their registered environmental health license, and so also can inspect. So we have a bigger team than we've had, at least in the recent memory.
Okay.
In my time.
So I'm going to request to the chair, if you can provide us for 2025 by ward, what establishments were cited by the department, by the division for health code violations, and how many were prosecuted?
Okay.
Because to me, on this stuff, I'm as serious as a heart attack. I got a real problem with people who disrespect our neighborhoods and our residents. And I want them to understand that if you're going to sell food in the city of Cleveland, you're going to sell wholesome food, and you're going to maintain your stores in a proper manner, and not disrespect. Because I find that somehow people think that when they're dealing with poor folks, they can do whatever they want. They can do whatever they want, and they think they can get away with it. And the message has got to be clear in Cleveland. No, you're not going to get away with that. You're going to run the same kind of stores if you weren't living in Westlake, okay? That's what I want in my neighborhood, and I demand that in my neighborhood. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to look forward to receiving that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman
Further
Polensek.
questions?
Thank you, Councilman Polensek. The chair recognizes Councilman Harsh.
Okay, good morning. Morning? Yeah, good morning, everybody. We've got 20 minutes left of good morning. Thank you, Chair. My questions are, so I took health, equity, social justice, air, environment, health, and admin as 5 divisions here that we're sort of just talking about together, right? And I added up the cost of these divisions in 2023 compared to the costs that are being asked for in 2026. And we go from 10.6 million total to 16.8 million, so about a 60% increase. So my first question through the chair to the director, what programs have you assumed or moved into your departments in the last couple of years that have been part of that cost increase? I know there have been some.
Yeah. So through the chair, I think the biggest change to that would be the filling our vacancies. So as I mentioned, we were 90. Our headcount was 90 across the department back then, and now we're 150 including grants. So that was 90 including grants. So that was the biggest. And then the salary adjustments through union negotiations, that would be the second thing. But in terms of what programs, the programs would be the lead program from Building and Housing, and the Home for Every Neighbor program, which is just the general fund, other contractual, and 2 headcount. And then being fully staffed, I think, is the biggest.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Yep.
So can we talk then about the lead and then Home for Every Neighbor, where in the budget book those costs can be seen? We'll start with the lead. Because I remember we did a couple years ago, move that into your department. So which section is that in?
Just a few months ago through the chair. Did we do that in October is when that officially went into effect. And so that's all in environment.
Yeah, so through the chair to the councilman, if you look at page 202 with the head count, you'll see 4 additional head count. And they're total to 28 from 24 and 2025. So those are specific to the lead positions that came over from Building and Housing.
Okay. And because environment is one of the departments that went up from 1.9 million to 5, that's got, I think, the 250% increase. That's probably like the largest growth of any of the departments individually. So would you say through the chair to the director, that's because of the lead and staffing, getting staffing up to full levels and then adding the lead program?
Yeah, through the chair, I've asked the team when the last time our division of environment was fully staffed in general fund, and it's been a long time. Yeah, Jim, a long time. So right now we have 0 general fund vacancies in environment.
Okay.
As of today.
Because I see on page 200 and other contractual, we go from 2,000 to 18,000 to 1.9 million in 2025. Through the chair, is that 1.9 and other contractual 1.9 million? Is that the lead program?
Through the chair, that's the Home for Every Neighbor program.
That's
but that
Home for
was
Every Neighbor.
in the finance department the year prior.
Okay. So then we'll jump to Home for Every Neighbor. So that 1.9 million, is that the cost that we're spending on the covering rent and housing for those folks?
Through the chair, rent and case management.
Rent and case management. And through the chair, what is the percentage breakdown there? What percentage of that 1.9 goes to rent and what percentage is case management, roughly?
Right now, it's about 1.7 million that goes into rent, and the rest goes into case management. We've also added members on our team to do case management through another grant.
Okay. And through the chair, how many people are we housing in that program right now?
Right now, we're about 100 folks are active in the program.
Okay. I don't have a calculator, but I think 1.7 million divided by 100 is a lot per person.
Through the chair, we spend about 20,000 an individual, including rent and case management. The average rent we pay is $1,095 a month.
So 12,000 per the person, and then 8,000 for case management.
Through the chair, that's about right.
Okay, that is a steep cost, but it also doesn't gel with 1.7 million of it being for rent. Well, that'd be 0.5, maybe.
Through the chair, too, we've added 2 additional case managers through a grant, and we have one on general fund who's the supervisor of case management, who we added over the summer.
Okay. I know we're going to have an extensive talk about Home for Every Neighbor at some point coming up, because it has had unintended consequences, I think is the appropriate way to speak about it. But I just want to go through real quick then. I'm going to start on page 196, because I want to make sure I understand some of these cost increases. So on 196, which is the Division of Health General, in contractual services, we have a 1.4 million unaudited professional service contract in 2025, and then projecting 1.37, which is up quite steeply from 185 the year before. What is that professional service line item?
Through the chair, Councilman Polensek asked for the breakdown, but just some examples. So first year Cleveland, which is a council initiative, is $500,000 a year from that. Our Metro Health providers and our health centers is $270,000. Additional supportive staffing, like our lab technicians, is through that fund. And we initiated a wide-scale project with, I believe, with council's support to scan old documents into, so for example, birth certificates from over 100 years ago are being scanned so that they can't disintegrate.
Okay. And then the other one was identified as Home for Every Neighbor. And then on page 207, it's a smaller increase, but 207 health equity. In the contractual services, the other contractual kind of jogs up and down. It was 411,000 a few years, then it dipped to 103, and it was 393 last year, and we're projecting 435.
Through the chair, most of that is to support, which you all legislated, I believe, last month for general fund Moms First support.
Wait, I thought we just said that, first year and Moms First are different programs.
Different, right.
Okay, all right. That's Moms First. Okay. And I think that that sums it up. I know that Chairman Conwell and Vice Chair Davis have heard me talk about some of this, but I think we need to look very closely at the Home for Every Neighbor program. I have very, very upset residents because I don't think we address the people's needs. I think we just sort of moved their problem from one place to another place, and then in doing so made it more people's problems instead of actually getting to the heart of their issues. So I won't belabor the point right now because I think we're going to have to bring it to the table during Health and Human Services and have a sort of deep dive into that program. But that's all I had, Chair. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Councilman Harsh. We'll certainly have some hearings on Home for Every Neighbor sometime this spring. The next up, the chair recognizes Councilman Shaw, to be followed by Councilwoman Hudson.
Thank you, Chair. I appreciate good morning. Appreciate your time. Wanted to just touch upon a few things, Director, through the chair. Can you just tell us a little bit more about the Home for Every Neighbor's statistics in terms of what have you been seeing in terms of the impact to the people that have actually been in the program?
Yeah, through the chair, thank you. With this council's support, we have housed 188 individuals directly from campsites. These were folks who other systems in the region had given up on, that they really were being told constantly that impossible to house. And so we've housed 188 individuals, around 50 or 60 have graduated now into some kind of long-term housing, whether it's a permanent supportive housing voucher, family reunification, or some have saved up enough income to be able to get their own apartment. And so as we graduate folks, we're able to house new folks, and it's given us the ability to address encampments without forcibly moving folks.
I appreciate that. And I think as my colleague Councilman Harsh said, we don't want to belabor the point too much, but I would like to point out to the table that this is, to me, just as much as every ounce of what we've spent in crime prevention. And we can't really complain about 1.7 million here when we're approving 27 million in overtime for the cops, and they should be just looked at in the same lens. And I don't think it's fair for us to apply the same scrutiny here that we're doing when we're doing a fraction of that scrutiny for other departments. So I appreciate the program and want to see it be supported. Wanted to talk about a little bit, Director, about the lead program. And just, I know we've talked about the loss of the grant revenue. Wanted to understand your reasoning for why don't we have one person who is designated as kind of bottom lining what we are doing. I know I'm new here, so you might have to fill me on some of the history, but I know we tried before with the lead czar. That didn't work out, but especially after the loss of this grant and us getting, some clarification that this was not going to happen in December, can you walk us through of like what's the reasoning here?
Sure.
Why wouldn't we want someone who is charged with this responsibility? Otherwise, Director, through the chair, we're going to be continuing to look at you and asking you for that.
Sure. So, which I don't mind, through the chair. So we have taken on more lead responsibilities within the health department, which I think is important, and our team has asked for that. We want to prevent lead poisoning in addition to following up on those cases. But in terms of the lead czar, we've had two. And the most recent one, as she left, she said, very clearly that the work needs to be done here in managing, improving the department responsible for home repair and really getting in the right leadership and helping make those grants work better. So having someone in the mayor's office, constantly nudging with emails wasn't doing it, and we really just need to fill those vacancies within the department that does that home repair work and get the right leaders in place. And I'm going to stay hopeful.
Okay. I yield my time for now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Shaw. Next up is Councilwoman Hudson, followed by Councilwoman Santana.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to the director, you mentioned in your presentation the mobile unit, the mobile health unit, and I know you and I discussed that when we toured the health department a couple weeks ago. And we also discussed that one of the services that the mobile unit does not provide is testing for lead. Through the chair, can you explain why the mobile unit does not test for lead?
Sure, thank you. This comes up a lot. Number one, I think the most important thing in terms of preventing lead poisoning is testing homes. We've got to test every home, that's built before 1960, before 1978 in Cleveland. As far as lead testing a 1-year-old or a 2-year-old, that's a highly specialized skill for a child phlebotomist. And we think that is best done by family medicine offices, pediatrics offices with the right folks in place to do the follow-up, to provide whole person care. And so for us to go around in a mobile unit, knock on doors and try and find children to be tested as opposed to the work we can do to get children into their medical homes, we thought that was a more important use of our resources.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. And since we met, I also had a briefing with Clash, who strongly advocate for the mobile unit to be used for testing lead. And so I done a little additional research and know that well child visits are still lagging behind what they were pre-pandemic. Not necessarily for infants, but in particular for toddlers, who I believe are the target group for testing for lead, and that there are some reasons that parents might not be able to get their children to these very important well child visits, transportation, time off work, financial constraints, the lack of insurance, which is getting worse, not better. Also mistrust of the healthcare system. Is there anything that through the chair, is there anything that the Division of Health is doing to help make sure that parents are going to their well check visits?
Through the chair, thank you. So that's the biggest gap is the pediatric wellness visits, and just doing the lead testing really robs families of that whole person care, all the measles vaccinations that Councilman Polensek mentioned, other childhood immunizations. So our teams in multiple different divisions are working with our local health providers, doing community engagement to help support and connect folks into care. In addition to that, we're also advocating both locally at the State House. I was yesterday with Senator Moreno and Senator Husted advocating for increased Medicaid access, and the 6-month re-enrollment into Medicaid. All those things are really harming families, and especially working families. And so that is the work that we do at Department of Public Health. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. And I also, my next line of questioning is regarding the Division of Air Quality, which is, through the chair, this is a department that has been very responsive to my particular block club due to some air quality issues that we've had in my neighborhood. And in December of 2025, there was a state-led effort to reduce how the Ohio EPA regulates air pollution. And in particular, I'm talking about the repeal of the air nuisance rule, which previously allowed residents to sue industries over noxious odors and smoke. And I just mentioned that we were experiencing some issues in my own personal neighborhood, but I know in Cleveland in general, with our industrial history, this is an important development for Cleveland. How does this affect the Division of Air Quality?
Through the chair, our folks in Division of Air Quality they're here to improve public health, and so I would say it won't directly change our work for now, but it definitely, we're concerned.
I mean, through the chair, I know that there are lawsuits related to this repeal, but I mean the climate regarding environmental issues is it's not encouraging right now. We need to do all we can to advocate for clean air for our residents' health. Is there anything that through the chair, is there anything that the Division of Air Quality is currently doing to advocate for keeping our air healthy and clean?
Through the chair, for about at least last year and a half, been working on our local air pollution control code update. Really been working on it for about 10 years, and so definitely look forward to further conversations with this body on what we can do for local air pollution control.
Thank you. I yield.
Thank you, Councilwoman Hudson. Next up, we have Councilwoman Santana, to be followed by Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to everyone, it's still morning. Good morning. A special shout out to Commissioner Mills, who I've had a chance to work with for many years. So thank you all for your work. I want to talk about the vape shop legislation. What section is that in? And we did read all the departments okay.
Through the chair, that's the Division of Environment.
Okay, environment. So I'm curious to know, where are the inspections for the smoke shops?
Through the chair, that's our local health code enforcement team, and we're adding another member to that, two more members to that team right now based on the revenue that have come in through grant funding, both that big $50,000 check that was up on the slide earlier and the smoke shop licenses that have been purchased so far.
Got it. And through the chair to the director, do we have a number of inspections that have taken place this year? Or 2025, I would say.
Through the chair, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but 200 or so have bought a permit at this point, and it just started in January. And we also had an Ohio Department of Health grant that allowed us to do the youth buys, and we had a 52% fail rate with that. And so, but we'll get back to you. We're going to do a health committee presentation on that topic, and I think next
If I
month.
may, for just a moment, to the director, we're going to have hearings on this subject at some point, hopefully this spring. I think that big storm in February prevented us from.
Okay, perfect. So through the chair, just to ask for today's budget hearing, do we have enough inspectors for all these vape shops that are opening up in our neighborhoods?
Through the chair, if there were only 200, yes, as more buy their permit or go out of business with the new state law that is banning the THC derivatives that go into effect next month, it will be very dependent on that. So as more get their permit, we will have more revenue to hire more folks. If they don't, we're working closely with code enforcement, especially for the ones in your neighborhood, to close them down.
Okay, thank you. And I would just finish with this. I still have the same amount of vape shops in my neighborhood since the legislation passed. So I'm just not seeing any movement, which is kind of a little frustrating. But if you say you're having a hearing, I look forward to attending that hearing.
Through the chair, so it just, January was the first month they could have a permit by, and it's only February. And so we are working closely with code enforcement lawyer on exactly your smoke shops. And you'll see a big difference in March with Governor DeWine's rules going into effect.
Thank you. I yield my time.
Thank you, Councilwoman. double clicking on what you said as well. We'll get to that later. But the chair recognizes Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, the Home for Every Neighborhood, the houses that we have, or the apartments or whatever that we're housing previously unhoused individuals in, are all of those houses lead inspected? Are all the rental registries up to date?
Through the chair, initially the answer is no. And so the first year before this was in the Department of Public Health, they were moving very quickly. As you know, the case management agencies that we're working with, we're not satisfied with, just like Councilman Harsh alluded to. And so that's why we brought on our own team and we're taking that work on. So going forward, yes, that is what we're doing.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, do we currently, how many previously unhoused individuals are we currently housing?
Through the chair to the councilman, around 100 right now.
Okay, and then Mr. Chairman, to the director, of how many units or houses or apartments do we have currently, are we currently renting?
Through the chair, the same number. There are some couples there, but it's around 100.
Okay, and then of those 100, do you know how many are had a lead inspection and are registered as a rental property?
Through the chair, not at this time. However, to graduate from one of the most common graduation tracks from the program is to go into the Eden voucher program. And to go into Eden voucher, you need to have rental registry and lead safe certificate, which is huge. And so it is an ongoing effort.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, I understand that, but we're not Eden, right? Eden's got their own standards. So my question is, why are we housing individuals in houses that do not have rental registries and do not have the lead inspection when we have good landlords reaching out to us all the time saying, hey, what do I do to get this taken care of, or I can't rent to anybody right now because I can't get a lead inspection done, and then here we are. You know, how do we know that we're not putting individuals previously unhoused in homes that are full of lead?
Through the chair, that is a fair criticism, and since we've taken the program onto our department, that is a focus.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, who'd you take the program over from?
Initially it was contracted out to an agency, and then it was community development was doing the unit acquisition piece.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, to the director, not to throw community development under the bus, but I will. They were renting houses that were not registered and that did not pass or had not had a lead inspection. I'm not saying the houses are full of lead. I'm saying that if we have a standard for people who own homes in the city of Cleveland, it's at least the least that the city of Cleveland could do is follow those same rules and regulations themselves. And Mr. Chairman, to the director, how much are we paying in rent on average?
Through the chair, we've kept the average at $1,095.
Okay, so we're on average, right, $1,095 per month to house a previously unhoused individual, right? And then my last question, Mr. Chairman, to the director is, what's the success rate?
Through the chair, so we've graduated about 50 to 60 folks from the program and have 100 currently in there. And so I would say it's about 80% getting into long-term housing. Engaging with folks on the street, we're about 99% getting them to that first step.
Okay, and then do you know, Mr. Chairman, to the director, then how many individuals you've actually reached out to compared to how many individuals you've actually housed?
Yes, through the chair, 190 individuals we've reached out to for housing, 188 we've housed.
So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, you've reached out to 190 individuals who were unhoused in the city of Cleveland, and you were able to find housing for 188 of them.
Through the chair, yes. So when we have room in the budget, and that's been the backlog right now, is getting folks now graduated from the program. We've had, like I said, a 99% success rate of getting them into housing. And
well, Mr. Chairman, to the director, I'm not going to argue with you here at the table, but in my own neighborhood, I can name at least 20 people that you've reached out to that were unsuccessful in getting, and that's not to you being unsuccessful, so they didn't want it, right? So I don't know, to sit here and say that you guys have reached out to 190 people and you're able to house 188.
Through the chair, what I mean by that is, so when we have housing available for folks, we've been able to offer folks an apartment, and 99% have said yes. So now there are others where right now, for example, we don't have any room in our budget available to house new folks. And so if you reached out with someone who was living in a campsite in Jefferson Park, we would do outreach with them. We would get them on different wait lists with different programs, work with our partners, but that wouldn't, that's not what I'm discussing, so I apologize.
All right, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if the council decided not to fund a Home for Every program because it should be a county program and they're not helping at all with it,
Yeah.
when would your funds, when would we have to say, okay, everybody's got to go, we're no longer doing the program?
Through the chair, later this summer, we would evict 100 people.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman Casey. The chair recognizes Councilman Harsh.
Yeah, thank you. It actually brought up a really good question. One of my colleagues was ticketed for not having a rental registry. Through the chair, what are we doing with the people whose rent the city is paying that aren't on the rental registry? Have they been ticketed for that?
Through the chair, we often notice building code violations and address them with 311, absolutely.
Are they, through the chair, how many of them have been cited for financially for not being on the rental registry?
Through the chair, I don't have that number.
I think it's really relevant. I think it's really relevant because it becomes a question of enforcement and it becomes a question of who do we enforce the laws against, right? If the folks were not on the rental registry and what's good for the goose is good for the gander, they should be getting a ticket even though the city is paying them their rent, which is a very awkward situation for the city to be in, but it's the situation we're in regardless. I think that would be the only fair thing to do. Oddly enough, they would turn around and pay the rent they would pay the ticket with revenue they made from the city. I don't know where that puts us in a legal stance, but that's...
No. Through the chair, it's a lease with the tenant, and so absolutely, it's totally acceptable. And like I said, the property in your neighborhood, we've absolutely sent building and housing out to that property to address.
Okay. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilman Casey. Councilman Harsh, excuse me. Everyone's doing great on that side of the table. I'll wrap us up. I think I'm the last one to have any comments or so. To the director, a couple little things and a couple bigger picture questions. Number one, just thank you for recognizing HIV Long-Term Survivors Awareness Day. That was a big deal last year. It was a big deal for a lot of folks in my community. Commissioner Wills. It's meaningful. These are folks who've had decades of fights with varying levels of government support, and to have a home here at City Hall meant a lot. So thank you very much. I'll underscore a couple of my colleagues' points. Councilman Polensik was asking about the grant funding. A big constituency in my neighborhood is data nerds and budget nerds, who are also very interested in supporting the work of the public health department, but are confused about, does the city really spend 0.001% of its funds on health? No, it's just more complicated. So being able to tell that story, I think, can build trust and make folks excited about the good work. So underscore that. I'll underscore my colleague, Councilwoman Santana's point, the tobacco retail license is a big win and a big victory for this city. I look forward to calling one day when the system is set up 311 to report certain gas stations near me who are not abiding by the rules.
So Chair, you can call now.
Can I call now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So I can call now to report violators, I love this, to 311 of our tobacco retail license. I am a narc. I think that the good people of the Near West Side pay me to narc on ne'er-do-wells. Director, I'll underscore one point you made, that we should be moving to a test every home model for lead. This is just a concern in my community, but I have a house that was built in 1880. That, the more support and the more, not just financial support, but technical assistance and clarity about how I can ensure my lead is home free, the better. And I look forward to work. There's so much good work to be done on this front. We'll find some great center of the Venn diagram there. But here's where I'll turn it more to you. Councilman Polensik mentioned childhood immunizations, and you did reference that we are running on the old immunization framework. Can you just spend a second and explain for the viewing audience what's going on with childhood immunizations?
Sure, yeah. So our focus is on community immunity. We're trying to do the right thing, and Clevelanders are stepping up and getting vaccinated. And so regardless of what's happening with the federal government, fortunately, the recommendations from the health department and our local professional societies and hospitals have not changed in terms of the number of vaccines recommended for children based on a lot of science.
To the director, and just to clarify the point, and this is maybe more for me to say than you, but the federal government has cut the number of immunizations it's recommending for children. It no longer trusts, it's stating that vaccines for children against the science are not safe and is leaving, well, I don't even know how to describe this. You're the doctor.
Through the chair, they made a recommendation to reduce the number, but they still recommend those other vaccines, but just with more conversations, essentially. And so Dr. Oz, who's the head of CMS and is actually doing a good job, is out there recommending everybody get all their vaccines. And so we'll stick with that.
To the chair, or to the director, thank you for clarifying. That is someone who's undergoing many of those conversations with my pediatrician right now. It is very confusing. It has muddled the waters greatly. My child had both the flu and COVID at the same time as January, and trying to think through what the proper procedure should have been before that happened has been a little daunting for new parents. So I'm glad the city of Cleveland is on the side of parents and not whatever anti-vaccine nonsense we're hearing. And let me just underscore one point. You did bring up Dr. Oz, and this is where I'm really going. Yesterday, and this is going to go in a different direction, he announced a 6-month national moratorium blocking all new enrollments for durable medical equipment, prostheses, and orthotics across the board. For anybody who's on Medicare and Medicaid, you can no longer get a prosthetic or orthotic piece of equipment. This is deeply personal for me. And so the idea that my government is now prohibiting folks, if you have diabetes or a traffic accident, from getting the equipment that gets you out of bed in the morning is diabolical. And I just want to say thank you to the public health department here for being on the side of people to understand that there are health needs, not just substantively, but in terms of political communication, in terms of understanding that folks are feeling some kind of way in this community. To have a commissioner of health equity and social justice here at the table is deeply meaningful, because we are seeing a dearth of that at every level of government. It's upsetting. And I'll just say, Commissioner Francis, speaking of our broken federal government, I'm still waiting on my Social Security card for my new baby, but I got a birth certificate same day. Thank you very much. But with that, thank you for being a presence in our community when there are such a big absence from the folks who should be here in the first place. Thank you very much. I think with that, we are wrapping up this hearing of the technically the Finance Committee. So, folks, thank you so much for your attendance, and
we will. Well, first you have to gavel out. But before we do, let's say it is 12:10, and I know some people wanted to go down to the Black History Month luncheon. So why don't we say we'll reconvene at 1? I was going to say exactly that, and then we will spend the next 17 hours going through the Department of Finance. Then we're done. So
right, 17 hours. Thank you very
Councilman?
much. 1 o'clock.